Unlisted.
All right, guys. I just restarted my stream. Hopefully this is better now. I feel,
In a socialist world, can private ownership not exist? No, it cannot exist. Socialists will lie to you and tell you that maybe some forms can exist, but no, it cannot exist. In a socialist world, private ownership can't exist for two key reasons. One is because they believe that all forms of employment are necessarily immoral, because remember, for a private owner to make money means that he's basically stealing surplus value from the employee. The only way that a private owner can make money as not a laborer is for somebody underneath him to be being exploited by the employment-employee model. Number one. And number two, that necessarily creates a division between classes where the wealthy person will have more money because they're extracting labor value from the laborer, and they're going to use that increased wealth disparity to manipulate through either lobbying or some other form of manufactured consent to manipulate the political system to effect their outcomes. So a true socialist will never be okay with any sort of capitalism, any sort of private existence in their economy, because it would necessarily lead to the destruction of the economy, because all private capital owners would use that to further their goals of capitalism and private ownership or whatever. Because that's, remember, for a lot of these people, the only reason why the Soviet Union or socialist utopias have failed in the past is because of liberalism, because of capitalist economies like the United States. That's their argument.
Bad because you guys are saying you want to listen, but the fucking...
Isn't Econoboi's argument just that the government would buy large portions of successful business, but those businesses would run on their own? Savorily, can you please explain to me, what does it mean? You just said, can you explain why you just said large portions of successful business, but he said complete social ownership is ideal? Savorily, can you explain to me why you said the government would buy large portions of successful businesses, implying not all businesses, and they would just buy large portions of it? But the business, what does he mean when he says, why did he say the term complete social ownership? I feel like people with the socialism shit also do the same thing that they do with Donald Trump, where they take like whatever they want to read into a thing, and then they just read into the thing, and it like, why not just go with what they're actually saying? Like, why not just look at what is actually being said? Saverly says, I can't, I'm a retard. Okay, I love you.
Stream just doesn't work. Sorry, guys, I'm just trying to... I have to, like, reset up all this stuff now. But, guys, just please let me know if it sounds fine.
An aspirational goal, but that in practice, it would not be possible. He argued that with Hutch. Okay, but that's if that's the aspirational goal, that's not a good aspirational goal. That'd be like saying, you understand that the final solution was an aspirational goal of Hitler. The first thing they tried to do was deport all the Jews, and then they tried to like basically put them in labor camps or whatever, or ship them around to different countries, especially ones that they'd taken over, and then eventually they got to killing them all, right? Like that. I don't know why you would be okay with an aspirational goal that is diametrically opposed to your core liberal values, as long as they acknowledge it's only aspirational and in practice they can never get there. That's such a stupid fucking thing to say. That's so stupid. I don't know why you would never accept that for any other radical extremist ideology. He said it's ideal, not mandatory, or what am I missing? Can't you have a moderate socialist, at least on paper? No, because socialists believe that capitalists are their enemies. They're diametrically opposed ideologically. That socialists and capitalists cannot exist. Well, correction. In a capitalist system, you actually can incorporate socialists because, for instance, people can have cooperatively owned business or whatever. But in a socialist-run system, they believe that capitalists are fundamentally evil, that transaction of employer-employee is a fundamentally evil thing, and that capitalists will always abuse the class divide to create a society where the wealthy can dominate the poor class, that the class ownership and extraction model from labor surplus value, that's always going to arise in a capitalist setting. So no, socialists and capitalists cannot exist. They can exist together kind of in a capitalist run system. They cannot exist together in a socialist run system. That's why in all the socialist countries, private ownership is banned or like super under attack, or why you have these like mono-party states like Vietnam or China or Russia. Like they don't allow, there's a reason why they don't allow the other parties to exist and to come up and like fight against them or have a chance like politically. They can't have it. It's contradictory to the model.
To Twitch. Okay, well, I don't know. Yeah, fuck. Sometimes I don't have the best internet, I guess. I don't have the streamer.
You're saying a bunch of things that Econoboi never actually said. He doesn't have to say them, though, but that's the issue. Every other socialist who knows anything about socialism will acknowledge all of these things, either implicitly or they'll just explicitly acknowledge it. That's why I don't know if Econoboi is being like an unwitting like fool that's being drug along to do like the whole like, oh, well, I'm a socialist now. Or I don't think he doesn't come off to me as like a mask on person. But I don't like, there's also this very weird, like, no true Scotsman game that's played with liberalism and capitalism as well, where people will look at these successful things that come from capitalist societies and they go, actually, anything good that came from a capitalist society was actually because of socialists, and anything bad that came was because of the capitalism. Like, you hear this thing, oh, you know, like the New Deal, and you know, like minimum wage and like the healthcare that we do have, like anything good, that was all because of socialists. However, that the bad stuff that comes, all of that is just because of capitalists. And it's like, oh, okay, well, fuck me, I guess, Jesus. Like, so in this capitalist society, all the good things are only because of socialism, but in the socialist societies, they never figured any of these things out. Like, isn't that kind of weird how that worked out?
Fucking 10 gigs up and down internet or whatever. So just give me a second and I'll be ready. Okay, so now that I've done that, I wanted to link, I wanted to pin in the chat a comment about my full model. Because people have been, I think, kind of asking me about all these specifics, and I'm free, you know, I'm fine to give specifics about my socialist model or whatever, but
Destiny, but is the European idea of socialism the same as in America? I feel like over here socialism is pretty much just some welfare and support for public. Yeah, that's like the weird thing is that I think in Europe, I think for a lot of younger people, I think in Europe socialism actually is just like when the government does more stuff. But then it's very weird because like young people and even like middle-aged people, I think in Europe will broadly say that, which is strange because it felt like a dumb American idea. But then in America, you have like actual like the crazy socialists, like people like Hasan, who do want to be like subversive to the current system and to flip stuff into some crazy vanguard party like Marxist-Leninist shit. But then you have other people who will like, I guess like at the end of the day, if I felt like people like Econoboi have the same positions as like Loanerbox, where it's like very obvious that Loanerbox is not supportive of people like Hasan, then I'm a little bit warmer to like, okay, fine, you want to do, you know, like your social welfare funds or, you know, whatever type of social ownership that allows the state to take advantage of growth in private companies, which I think is actually really good. We should all feel somewhat invested in, the success of these companies. And right now you don't. If Facebook or Tesla or whatever the fuck else is a huge, you know, stock earning quarter, like you don't feel like you've benefited as an American. And I think having ways to feel that benefit is important. But like, when you're also like giving a free pass to the MLs, then I'm like, okay, I don't know what the fuck is going on. I don't get that. That can't be the case. Like these people make you look crazy. Are you not aware of that?
Obviously it's a little bit, you know, it's hard to give an in-depth explanation of everything about my model in like the form of a single comment when I've already written it down before. Okay, good God. Let's just take that from the top, since literally everyone was saying my audio was fucked. All right. So sorry about that, guys. Do not mean to stream with like bad audio or whatever, but hopefully this is good now. Is this going to be a long stream? I don't know, probably a couple hours like my typical stream. I guess I don't normally stream this late at night, but definitely not on a Sunday, but I don't know. I just felt like I keep getting misrepresented. But anyway, so yeah, to repeat myself, you've gone and made me tired, guys. You've gone and made me tired. So let's kind of explain where I'm coming from on this, and let's kind of...
Destiny, what is the correct label for someone who just wants the government to do more stuff? We call those people, they can be liberals and you can be capitalist. I don't know why I don't know where this obsession comes from that they have to identify as something totally different, right? Like we talk about issues with the Democratic Party's labeling and the Democratic Party's branding. And it's like, well, anybody that wants to empower the state, like the abundance guys, right? Oh, now the abundance guys also get unhingedly fucking attacked by all of these lefties too. I don't know why or whatever, because they're not full on socialists or whatever. But like liberals and capitalists can empower the state to do way more positive shit. You don't need like socialism to do that. You can just empower the state in our current like mode of operation. The United States didn't become socialist when we, you know, had New Deal programs that were being implemented across the country. We didn't need socialism or to become socialist to do that. We didn't need socialism for, you know, the Affordable Care Act. We didn't need socialism for, you know, like minimum wage. It's like it's just this weird no true Scotsmaning of all capitalist stuff, and anything good that comes from capitalism can't be, you know, given, like liberal societies or capitalism can't be given credit for. I just it's just bizarro.
Kind of explain why I'm even having this stream in the first place, and hopefully it'll all make sense. Okay, the audio's fine now. Thank you so much. Go ahead and cry. You can stop crying now. Anyway, so let's kind of take it from the fucking top. Okay, since my stream audio was shit apparently. So, all right, Tallybots. That Talia, yes, that Talia. She tweeted based, and it was to this clip. It was to this clip.
Also, to be clear, this Talia person is cringe as fuck. Okay, I don't support them. Okay, I don't condone them. This person is literally a single issue voter on trans stuff. Okay, that if you're wondering where the Talia person's political views come from, they literally are fully and completely informed by her obsession with trans people. All she needs is a British accent, and she'll be good to go as a TERF.
Clip. So let me just exit this out real quick. It was to this clip.
I think I said this in the past with like 60% conviction. I say this with 90% conviction. Now, socialists, you should treat them as Nazis. They are just as cancerous and toxic for liberalism as Nazis are. You should treat them the same way. These people are not your friend, they're not your ally. They don't advocate for a government would tolerate you. They would just as easily co-opt your liberal systems to enslave and murder you, your family, whatever. Given the opportunity to do. That's what they've done historically, and it's what they included speech talking about going forward. Like, you shouldn't tolerate these types of people. If you care about liberalism broadly, if you are a socialist, well, God bless you. You know, obviously, your friends. But if you're not, like, it's kind of weird to have a live and learn. If your audience is like, how socialist, maybe I don't know. Are socialists and communists different? No. What about Dem stocks that advocate for democratic reform to get to socialism? As long as you're okay with like not stocks, like Nazi socialists or whatever, I guess, that are national socialists. No, it's cringe and bullshit. All it ends up is like fucking code language anyway. How many stock Dems and Dem stocks are going on to just become fucking tankies, right? Fuck all that shit. It's too much, dude. I'm mind broken on like the Dem stock and the sock Dem labels, because it seems like all of these people eventually just come out as like MLs eventually. That's what Hasan masqueraded as was. I don't even think he called himself a Dem sock. I think he called himself a sock Dem initially. And it seems like anything with socialism in it, eventually these people just gravitate towards either giving cover to MLs or becoming ML. I don't know why or how that happened, but
okay, now
it's just like it's too cringe. It's too much.
I responded to this in a tweet, and what some people in like a lot of people responded back and told me like, you don't understand, like Destiny's just talking about Hasan. He's just talking about like tankies.
I'm not just talking about Hasan. I'm talking about tankies. I'm talking about anybody that wants to use this like socialism label. I think it's super ultra cringe, and we shouldn't like give a pass to it. I think it's ultra cringe.
He's just talking about like authoritarian socialists or anti-democratic socialists, things like this, and I went back and I watched the full stream.
What is ML in this context? So ML is a Marxist-Leninist, okay? MLs are tankies. MLs believe that you need a revolutionary vanguard party to come up and authoritatively take control of a country's governing system to purge all of the capitalist thought from that country in order to bring about the conditions necessary for the socialist utopia to come afterwards. Now, surprisingly, none of them seem to have made it past the vanguard party authoritarian stage, but that is like what MLs, like broadly speaking, believe in. And that's why they have all of the mental models for how all capitalists are evil, and all of them will use their capital and their wealth extraction from labor to further their own interests and to make sure that we constantly stay stuck in a class warfare hellhole. And this is why they talk about the importance of class consciousness is to rise up and overthrow the capital class and all of that.
In the context of it, I just don't see that, I guess, like in the clip. Like I don't see that in the clip, and I don't see that in like the surrounding context. If Destiny wants to clarify that, he can, but I mean, he even says like, oh, I had 60% conviction on this in the past, and then references just broadly socialists. And then he even like narrows his criticism specifically the democratic socialists. And I'm like, I don't know, like that doesn't seem very fair. I don't think that's a sensible way to understand the socialist.
So wait, socialists are the same as communists? Yeah, they try, sometimes people draw this like weird distinction, but I think like socialists and communists are all more or less, like they don't like the word communist anymore because I think it's a bit dated, but like I think it's all more or less the same shit. Like I think they just like play games or play. Yeah, I think they play word games between the two things. Nobody uses communist anymore as a term to describe anything.
Movement historically or even contemporarily. And so I respond with this tweet, trying to inject some nuance here. And what I say is this. This is not based. There's a robust history of socialists being elected, enacting reforms, and giving up power after their terms expire or losing an election with democracy intact. Treating all socialists as Nazis is to severely misunderstand the history of both movements. And in the reply...
Like, this is such a weird statement. Like, there's a robust history of fascists being elected, enacting reforms, and giving up power after their terms expire or losing an election. Like, technically, Trump did give up power on January 6th. He technically did. Or January 20th, right? But, it's such a meaningless statement.
With democracy intact, treating all socialists as Nazis is to severely misunderstand the history of both movements. And in the replies, it kind of got lost, I guess, in the other comments. I don't know if I like replied in like the wrong way or something. I'm kind of a fucking boomer. But what I say was, I don't think people like Ilhan Omar, Rashida Tlaib, AOC, I don't really think that they're the same thing as like the tanky left. And I certainly don't think they should be treated like Nazis, even though they're, DSA people.
So Straw Waffle says, maybe I'm retarded, but 3 of the top 5 parties in Norway are called Workers' Party, Socialist, Leftist Party, and Red Party. I don't have this ingrained aversion to the socialist label just because I want the government to do more stuff. I also don't want no planned economy. Yeah, but like these people, I think they won't say it, but they're in a roundabout way, they are arguing for some form of planned economy and a ban on private investment. Like, again, remember, he explicitly says that in his ideal form of socialism, everything would be socially owned, which demands some form of economic planning, meaning the government is choosing what companies get to exist. The government is choosing, what products are going to be made. The government is choosing what to invest in. Necessarily, you have no more private investment. Now, you could argue, and I'm sure Econoboi will argue tomorrow. He'll say, well, sure, but at least we can vote on what we want the government to do. We can vote on what we want them to invest in next, which I would argue has a whole host of other problems. Remember, we voted for Donald Trump, although they countered to saying, well, you voted for Donald Trump, sure, but that's only because of capital interests, which only further reinforces the fact that you would have to ban all of that in any ideal socialist society, because you would say the only bad stuff we voted for, we've done so because capitalists have abused the wealth disparity because of all the extraction they've done from labor in order to manufacture consent amongst the population that's causing us to vote for bad things, right? So it's another argument for why they have to ban all forms of private investment or privatization or whatever. All of this shit is so fucking cringe. It's so cringe. It's just so cringe. Like, why? Like, can we just not?
Like Mamdani or any other like DSA affiliated Democrat, I don't think it's fair to treat them as Nazis. And I don't think that historical examples, I use like Curtis in Australia, Clement Attlee in the UK, and a bunch of DGGers were pretty upset about these examples that I use. They would say like, oh, like these are just social democrats. And I'm like, no, like we have to be clear on our terms here. The Labour Party in 1941 ran on a socialist platform. The platform of the Labour Party in 1941 literally said the Labour Party is a socialist party and proud of it. And they talked about nationalizing like many, many different key industries and also starting a national health service, which they then ended up doing. So, I mean, it's just like, I think fundamentally, you have a lot of people.
I would have to like go back and look up historically every single one of these things, but like usually it comes that when I look up like, oh, who were these people? They weren't like avowed socialists, or it was like a minority party and like a larger coalition of like liberal capitalist things, or they called themselves socialists, but more or less they were basically just like social democrats or liberals. But I would have to go back and look it up, so I'm not going to say he's wrong on that. Just every single time I've ever checked into any of these claims ever, they've always been basically liberals and capitalists.
People who have responded to this and said, well, if you're an incrementalist, if you're a reformist, if you believe in democratic frameworks, if you don't believe in socializing the entirety of the economy, you're not like a real socialist. But I don't think historically or contemporarily that's how these terms have been used, and I think that that's kind of a problem. I use the example of a utilitarian. So Destiny is a utilitarian. There's a lot of utilitarians out there. Most utilitarians would say, hey, I believe in maximizing utility. But then some common, I would say, surface level objections to that is, what is utility? How do you maximize it? Can you even really maximize it? A lot of people who are utilitarians to that would simply say, well, look, obviously, practically speaking, it is a bit opaque what it means to maximize utility. In terms of literally maximizing utility, like there's some natural, like practical limitations to that. Like we can only maximize utility so much. It can't actually be maximized for various reasons. You might say that there's literally political constraints. Like maybe there's ways to maximize utility that require certain political reforms, but practically speaking, we just can't do it. And so, look, for all those reasons, yes, I'm a utilitarian, but it's not practical to achieve those ideals for one reason or another. We can only take certain steps towards them. That doesn't mean you're not a utilitarian, and it doesn't mean that different political thinkers or governmental actors who acted in utilitarian fashions weren't really utilitarians. That's the only thing I wanted to do is inject a little bit of nuance into that discussion. I thought a lot of the discussion, to be fair, I was getting, people were kind of, people keep assuming a lot of things about my position, which is kind of frustrating. I've seen a lot of comments to the effect of like, oh, like Econoboi just is a Hasan simp, and it's like, where's the evidence for that? Like of all the comments I've made about Hasan historically, I mean, like probably 95% of them have been negative, and the other 5% have probably been neutral. Like I don't even know. I literally don't. I mean, like probably 90% on simp, and it's like, where's the evidence for that? Like of all the comments I've made about Hasan historically, I mean, like probably 95% of them have been negative, and the other 5% have probably been neutral. Like I don't even know. I literally don't know if you can find any comments on any video or text fashion.
So this is the thing that I said, it's very hard to quantify, but it's not so much that like they are saying positive comments about Hasan. It's the idea that you would be in a call and then the argument is over like, should we try to appeal to more like moderates, or should we try to appeal to tankies like Hasan? And it seems like the argument is that you should try to appeal to tankies. Now you can say we're not saying anything positive about him, but it's like, damn, that's just an insane position to inhabit, and then expect that nobody thinks that you're looking favorably or at least semi-favorably upon that ideology. That's just a crazy position to inhabit. I don't know.
Which is me making a positive comment about Hasan. Like I literally don't know that that's even available. I don't know that that's available, right? I've had a lot of criticisms of Hasan and like his rhetoric, and I've had a lot of criticisms of these other members of the alternative left ecosystem. That's not.
Isn't it just quibbling over what their political labels mean? And you also can still call Trump as conservatives, but they are certainly not adhering to conservative values. So why stand this firm on the socialism label? Are you asking me or them? My biggest issue is because like this has all been kind of like couched. This has all been kind of like couched in the broader conversation of who should the Democratic Party be trying to appeal to, right? That's where this all kind of like sprung out of. I think if we were in a world where this had come from something else, then maybe my position on this would be a bit different, or I wouldn't care as much about it. But like when you have like this like row of dominoes of like the Democrat, like you've got the Mamdani stuff, who is pretty far left, but I mean, it's New York City, it's whatever, it's a mayor, you know? You've got the Mamdani stuff, and then you've got like, you know, like people like Econoboi on Live and Learn are like, actually, I'm a socialist now. And then you've got, you know, like Pisco's like, well, would you rather vote for Hasan Piker or Donald Trump? And it's like, God damn, those are some extreme positions. And then you've got the arguments of like, we should be trying to appeal and capture all of the Marxist-Leninists to be part of our political party rather than pushing this. It's just like a lot of stuff in secession. And I'm like, I don't know, man. It starts to feel like very, very, very fucking weird.
Not new. That's not anything that's I'm unfamiliar with or haven't done in the past. I mean, I think it's kind of ridiculous to frame it that way. This all fundamentally comes from the conversation that I had with Hutch and Josiah and Pisco. That's what Destiny was reacting to in the background, where what I said was, I don't think that the lefties criticizing AOC for her vote are going to have a lot of impact on AOC's future political career. And people were saying that was downplaying it. No, these lefties have like a huge influence.
Yeah, because but the question was never is like this, like the whole way that this got reframed. This is a big gaslight, okay? The question, like this is a huge gaslight of Hutch. All three of these guys mind fucked him so hard on this. Nobody was saying that the leftists are bad because they're going to have a negative impact on AOC's ability to get elected in the future. That was never the argument. The argument was that they're having a bad impact on the Democratic Party because the Democrats are constantly getting it from every fucking side, always, from everybody. This was that tweet I was looking for earlier, and it's a good tweet. If you're on the right, shitting on Dems is how you demonstrate the shared hatreds that make you part of the tribe. If you're on the center left, shitting on Dems is how you demonstrate the above-it-all independence that earns the admiration of your peers. If you're on the left, shitting on Dems is how you demonstrate the moral and ideological purity that are the price of membership. And if you're in the media, shitting on Dems is how you fight off accusations of bias and establish your objectivity. There is no faction in U.S. politics, barely even elected Democrats, for whom praising Dems is socially advantageous. There's no approbation weighting, no reputational I think it's reputational boost, what he meant, for anyone. It is, from almost every vantage point, uncool. Just try it on Twitter to see for yourself. Thus, we get today's information environment. This was in 2023 that this guy tweeted this, by the way, which responds to a transition from 4 years of violent, irrational madness and mass death to 3 years of relative, scandal-free sanity and economic recovery with unrelenting top-to-bottom negativity. To hear Pisco ever say Biden did some Trumpian shit, that is like, it's like the most retarded comment you could ever make. Like if you saw like Joe Biden drinking a glass of water and it's like, what a Nazi and simp that he took from that glass of water there. It's like, what the fuck? No faction, as far as I can tell, not a single individual, wants to reckon with their role and responsibility in this state of affairs. So I guess we're just going to talk ourselves into outright fascism, and it's going to be no one's fault.
Let's just say I'm completely wrong about that. Let's say I'm completely wrong, and actually these lefties have a huge amount of influence. That's just me being wrong on a descriptive fact is not me simping for Hasan or me doing anything akin to that. Like, that's a little bit absurd, if you ask me, to make that leap of logic. So that out of the way, Destiny sees that tweet, and he responds with this comment.
Link the tweet.
He responds with this comment, and I'll go into my response as well. So he sees this tweet where I say this isn't based, and I kind of try to, I put in a little bit of nuance there, I think to be nuanced. He says, would you ban all forms of private ownership in your ideal society and outlaw parties that support private ownership? Here is what I immediately say. And this is all you can see 6 hours ago. I immediately say yes and no. Now, this will be important later. He asks me 2 questions, and then I say yes to the first, no to the second. But even if you misinterpreted that and said, oh, well, maybe he's saying a middling answer on both of those things, like maybe he would kind of want to ban all parties that advocate for capitalism, and maybe he would kind of want to ban all private ownership, I immediately say in the tweet thread this. Practically, I think there's an upper limit on public ownership, but I think we can go even further than Norway and maintain economic growth. However, I think complete social ownership is ideal, and if we can figure out a way to get there, I'd be all for that. And no.
Like, well, maybe we'll see if he talks about this, I guess.
I'm a Democrat first. I don't think advocating for private ownership or any alternative model should be banned. Pretty clear answers to those questions. Next up, I say, on the presence of private ownership, I come to socialism from a normative view that social ownership is ideal for egalitarian purposes, but that doesn't mean it's entirely practical. For instance, most utilitarians, and I go into the utilitarian argument.
Like, I think that because of the way that socialism is described and because of the victims of socialism, right? Like, if you think in an ideal form, well, who are the victims of socialism? Well, it's the landlords and it's the millionaires and the billionaires and the large corporations. So the victims actually seem like okay victims. Like, yeah, fuck those people, right? Whereas in fascism, the victims are the poor, dispossessed, and the minorities and everything else. Now, obviously, if you flip this right? A fascist empire will tell you the victims are actually the people who are in control of all society, like the Jews or certain minorities that are destroying our culture. And in socialism, it's horrible because the victims are just the small business owners and people that just want to live free lives and make free decisions, right? It just depends on who you ask. But like the idea that like I wouldn't advocate for private ownership being banned, but I think that social ownership of everything is ideal means that would be a direction you're constantly pushing it, which is a banning of all private enterprise and all private ownership. It's banning the ability to form a company on your own. It's banning the ability to hire an employee ever, that's just, I don't know. I guess we'll talk about it tomorrow, but
argument, right? Which you've already heard. So I feel like that is like a pretty tight, that's like, I don't even know. That's like 5 sentences where I say pretty fucking explicitly that in an ideal world, we would have total social ownership, but similar to the utilitarian who can't exactly practically accomplish his ideals, just thinks that it's just to do, I don't know that that's actually practical to do, right? There's limitations here that we're working with. And also egalitarianism, for those that don't...
You should watch us talk with Hutch. He explains how it would happen. Link me.
No, who haven't read the Substack post that I've made. I come to socialism through an egalitarian framework, but egalitarianism isn't the only thing that I value. I don't think that, for instance, if we were all equally poor, that's better than a society with some trivial level of inequality, but we're, much more wealthy in that society. I take economic growth to be important things. I take like what you might call utility to be important things. I take things like community and solidarity to also be important things. I'm an ethical pluralist. I have multiple values that I want to try and maximize, but obviously some of these values compete against each other. And you have to try and come to practical kind of like ultimately practical alternatives to the limitations of your ethical viewpoint in an applied sense. So again, similar to how a utilitarian would say it's not practical to totally maximize utility. However, I'm still a utilitarian because I think it's a generally good principle. And I think that social ownership in socialist economics is a generally good principle to adhere to, but I recognize that there's some practical limitations. And I go through that in the article that I pasted in the comments of this stream.
Like the analogy doesn't work here. This analogy is just analogous, okay? So when he's saying that this is the same thing as a utilitarian not being able to effect his ideal utilitarian world, and he's just getting to part of it, the issue that I'm having is not that he can't reach his idealized version of a world. It's that I think that the idealized version of the world is bad, right? If a utilitarian's idealized version of their world was the murder of all black people, but they're saying, understandably, I can't get there, so I guess in the meantime, I just have to make black people, as productive in society as possible because I can't enact my idealized version of utilitarianism, I wouldn't support that person's politics, right? I'd say, hold on, that's kind of unhinged. And if your idealized version is the banning of all private ownership and all private capital, but you don't think you can ever get there, so you're just going to try to take as many steps towards it in the meantime, that's not a thing that I would support, right? These are not, the issue is not the fact that you have an idealized version of something that you can never get to. It's that I don't like the idealized version of that thing, and I think there should be more criticism towards it.
And I kind of go, this is like a 5,000 word article, so it's very, it's a very, it's a very like, kind of like in-depth explanation. Ben Riley donates $5. One common contention Desi makes is what level of coercion are you willing to allow to achieve your version of socialism? My answer to that is just the ordinary coercion that's associated with property rights in the first place. I believe in entirely voluntary transactions to get there. So I guess not entirely because, things like eminent domain already exist, and that would probably still exist in my society. But, those are things that clearly people are, I guess, for the most part, okay with. And things like, probably there'd be like some, what you could think of as like maybe like emergency expropriation, where like maybe it's the case that like some like absentee landowner or something is, creating a negative experience where a bunch of people are about to like die from a condemned property. So the city has to like take it over. That's all normal. That all exists in our current society, right? But for the most part, it's all like voluntary transactions and stuff like that. Everything that I just mentioned before that is very marginal and on the edges. Okay. Now, I say all this, right, which I think that to be like a pretty sensible explanation and a pretty sensible, like clear explanation as to what I'm saying and like what I'm advocating for. And then later today, I get people sending me clips from, I guess Destiny did a stream called Hanging Out with Connor. I don't know if he's still doing it right now. And then Destiny says this, right? Which I just think to be, well, I don't know, just listen and you guys can tell me, I guess.
How do you feel about that definition?
Yeah, that's a definition that I would probably agree with is like socialism. Okay. But a lot of socialists are like, oh, we just want more of like a welfare state.
So do you feel like they're hiding the power level?
Yes.
Okay. Me too.
But it's very fucking annoying. It's like very telling based on how mad they get at certain people. It's like I thought, today, Econoboi quote tweeted somebody saying that I had a base clip or whatever, and he was like, "Oh no, not base. Actually, socialism is actually really cool, kids. Like, trust me." And I responded to him with a pretty hyperbolic tweet, like expecting him. I figured it was kind of a layup, like he should be able to like shoot it down easily, and then I could have like a more like detailed back and forth. But my question was like, "Hey, I'm just curious. In your ideal social society, would you ban all private capital and all opposing political parties?" And his response started off with like, "Well, yes and no."
Right.
Like, And this is the moderate. Keep in mind that he's like the insanely moderate
Yeah, he's the nice
type.
one. He's the friendly one.
And even he's on like the, yeah, I would ban, maybe like kind of ban opposing political parties and ban private owners. Like, okay, well, that's a little bit insane, but.
This is my frustration with socialism in general, because when I came into Twitch and YouTube politics, there were a whole bunch of creators who were basically like, no, we're not.
Now, to be fair, in his next tweet, he says explicitly that he wouldn't ban opposing political parties. But if you're advocating for full social ownership, I don't see how that's possible. But maybe he'll explain it. We'll hear.
Not into the scary stuff, right? But
Okay, and I think that's like the gist. I mean, to me at least, that's like the gist of the clip, right? So, you know, and if Destiny wants to just say like, oh, I didn't really read what you wrote, or like I misunderstood what you wrote, like that's fine, right? We'll get into that in his response later. But that's clearly an insane interpretation to what I wrote. Like that's clearly an insane interpretation to what I wrote. I clearly said, no, I would not, like practically speaking, I wouldn't ban private ownership.
Like practically speaking, but idealistically, I would be constantly pushing in that direction. Like, what is that distinction even relevant?
That I have like these normative reasons why I would think that social ownership is an ideal. And by the way, those normative reasons are reasons that almost everyone would agree with, right? That a pretty classic argument against socialism is, well, it sounds nice on paper, but it doesn't really work in practice. Which is to say, if it could work, socialism would be great. Because why should it be the case that private owners are the only ones that own capital, or very disproportionately the people that own capital, and not just the society at large? My 3 Wonks podcast, neoliberal Micah Irfan, who is not a socialist by any stretch of the imagination, we did an episode called about collective ownership, where we spoke about all these things. And even Micah said, if social ownership could work, it is ideal, because maybe you can internalize some externalities, and then you have this egalitarian distribution of profits, and that is a totally sensible opinion to have. A lot of capitalists and neoliberals have that opinion. I have that same opinion, that yes, like in an ideal sense, and I because I think that's an ideal, and because I think that it's an egalitarian ideal, that yes, it would be great to only have social ownership, but as explained in my article, which predated this, which Destiny hasn't read, and it's okay that he hasn't read it, that clearly we would still have private transactions and private ownership in my ideal system, or like what you could say my practical ideal system, right? That I would take a lot of what Norway does, I would change a few things up, and I would go a little bit further, but that's, I think, where we hit kind of the bedrock of what is practical, and maybe in the future, that'll change. I'll read a quote from one of the parts of the article series that I wrote. It's by G.A. Cohen. It kind of, it's emblematic of the point that I just made. G.A. Cohen says this in his book. He says, any attempt to realize the socialist ideal runs up against entrenched capitalist power and individual human selfishness. Politically serious people must take those obstacles seriously, but they are not reasons to disparage the ideal itself. The socialist aspiration is to extend community and justice to the whole of our economic life. As I have acknowledged, we now know that we do not know how to do that, and many think we now know that it is impossible to do that. But community conquest in certain domains, such as healthcare and education, have sustained viable forms of production and distribution in the past. G.A. Cohen, in a book that he wrote, I don't even know how old this book is, honestly. This is like a decade-old book at this point. He makes substantially the same point. And G.A. Cohen was not an authoritarian. He was not, he was a socialist, but that's my point. And I feel like I laid that out pretty clearly. And Destiny interpreted that in like clearly the most incomplete and not necessarily bad faith, but like he just didn't really read what I wrote, right? And he's speaking to like thousands and thousands of people.
Well, all right. We'll see what comes out tomorrow.
Like, hold on.
Okay, hold on. Apparently he talks to Hutch about this.
Hello.
Hello, Mr. Hutch.
Hey, buddy. How you doing?
Doing around currently in the trenches of DGG, trying to explain socialism.
In the Reddit or where?
It's everywhere, man. Everywhere, Hutch.
One of the things I also don't like is, I'll just say this, okay? Like, imagine if I say, okay, if I were to say this, I think that we should be able to have huge muscles and great bodies. We should also be able to eat chocolate cake all the time. Okay, all right, well, how are you going to do that? Well, I'm going to go to a whole bunch of powerlifters and bodybuilders. No, not powerlifters. I'm going to go to a whole bunch of bodybuilders. I'm going to go to a whole bunch of fit people in the gym, and I'm going to have all of them start eating chocolate cake. And I was like, okay, based. And then you do that for a little bit, and you're like, okay, cool, look, you have all these people with these fit bodies, and they're really healthy, whatever, and they're eating chocolate cake all the time. That's awesome. So, like, look, it seems like eating chocolate cake all the time is actually like a realistic way to have like the happiness of getting to eat chocolate cake always, and also like being really fit and healthy and having a nice body. It's like, hold on. Those bodies were not made because they ate a ton of chocolate cake. Those bodies were made because they were in the gym doing some form of caloric restriction and eating healthy and like paying attention to their diet and everything, right? Why is it that the socialists get to come in and say, well, wouldn't an ideal society be one where, we have like public ownership of all these things? Yeah, but public ownership of what? Of services and goods and firms that were privately massively successful. It wasn't socialism that produced all of the massive firms that now you want to have some social ownership over, right? So it's like they're like finding a way to say, because he said, well, doesn't everybody acknowledge that in an ideal system, this is what we would want? And it's like, well, even in your idealized system, and also even Marx said this, right? That you need capitalists to do all of the capital formation stuff before the socialists can kind of come in and take it all over. Like, would they be able to continue to create or innovate or push forward in the same way that private enterprise has? I don't know. I mean, I haven't seen any examples of that. Maybe they could, and it just hasn't happened yet, but
that community is like really activated right now, and we have our disagreements, but some of the rhetoric is fucking.
Read the Vosh message. The Vosh message for all time. This obsessing over Vosh's messages from 6 years ago is fucking retarded. I don't care. I don't give a fuck about any of this.
Where, Hutch?
That community is like really activated right now, and we have our disagreements, but some of the rhetoric is fucking crazy that's showing up on my feed. Like, hold on, let me find it. Somebody was saying that, where did I see it? It was in this thread? No, it was, I posted about the live and learn stuff, and then.
Wait, hold on. Somebody said I should listen for a minute or two more. One sec.
And it's clearly just an unfair interpretation of my position. And it's one of the reasons why there's a bunch of people saying now, like, oh, like Econoboi is not in favor of democracy. Because you know, it's like, that's what they think, because they don't, you know, people aren't going to read this stuff themselves, right? And so I posted on Twitter. I basically said, you know, hey, OmniLiberal, that's his Twitter account. I say, hey, OmniLiberal, you asked me 2 questions. The second of which was, would I ban capitalist parties? And I said, no. I also included immediately a full explanation of my position where I said I'm a Democrat first. I assume you misread. I then say several times now, it's been represented that I'm not in favor of democracy or liberal government, not just by destiny, and that's pretty frustrating. When predating any of this, I released my full model where I specifically rejected anti-democratic approaches, and I kind of highlight from the articles that I wrote. I talk about socialism without fear of democracy. I say some problems with this. Number one, I just straight up believe in democracy. And then I also say that when it comes to, you know, socialism with Econoboi characteristics, the thing that I advocate for, the model should be compatible with democratic frameworks. Like I'm writing this, I'm literally writing it out as clearly and concisely as I can possibly think to. Maybe I'm not the best writer in the world, but it's just, you know, that's frustrating to have your position misrepresented by this. And if Destiny comes back and says, hey, look, fuck, I just, you know, I wasn't paying that close of attention, I just misread whatever. Fair enough. But then he comes back and within the same stream he says this in response.
But Drew Pavlin would do that shit.
I don't hate her. I just don't get very serious political person.
Hold on, I have to like go back to the clip.
You're political center. You don't need to.
Made a video in Moscow. Look at the grocery store.
I think I messed up.
I think there's an upper limit.
Okay, here we go. Found it. Fine.
I don't hate her. I just don't get very serious political person.
The point is, like, I'm pretty sure he would have the exact tempo in order to do a 2-minute video. Where he's like, holy shit, guys, I went to the grocery store in Australia and look at all this fucking shrimp.
There you go. Also, hold on, I got Econoboi responded to Mulder real quick.
Please.
He said, hey, at the Liberal, I appreciate your retraction. You asked me 2 questions. The second of which was, would I ban capitalist parties? And I said no. I also included immediately a full explanation of my position.
Okay,
so I said, would you ban all forms of private ownership in your ideal society and outlaw parties to support private ownership? His response was, yes and no. Practically, I think there's an upper limit of public ownership, but I think we can go even further than Norway and maintain economic growth. However, I think complete social ownership is ideal. And if we can figure out a way to get there, I'd be all for it. So complete social ownership means the elimination of all private property, all private investment.
Okay. I feel like Destiny is reading this as if this is a gotcha. I have to repeat this for the 100th time because I feel like there's a lot of people watching. I've never eschewed away the idea that it would be an ideal to only have the social ownership of capital. I'm not going to repeat my point about this for the 100th time. Again, just because an ideal is impractical doesn't mean that it's not in some sense just.
I don't know. I guess maybe we'll read, maybe tomorrow, I guess. Maybe we'll read his Substack, I guess, explain this. I don't understand. I feel like this distinction is meaningless, but maybe in his Substack, maybe he has it.
Right? Just because there's practical obstacles to something doesn't mean that it is not in some sense just. That just period, right? Practically speaking, I don't think you can literally get rid of all capital, just to be clear.
So practically speaking, he wouldn't want to ban all private ownership, but idealistically he would. Like, why? Like, I don't think that's good. I think that's immoral. I don't like that. The idea that I would be banned from ever starting a company or banned from doing private investment, I don't think that's a moral good. I don't think that's ideal. And if you think that's ideal, I wouldn't consider this person somebody I would be in alignment with heavily. It's just not. The fact that you might pick up a few social programs on the way for like healthcare or whatever, on the way to your abolition of all private investment and all private enterprise, I don't think that's a good thing.
Doesn't mean that it is not in some sense just. That just period, right? Practically speaking, I don't think you can literally get rid of all capital, just to be clear. I feel like he's reading, and that wasn't even the point that I made. The point that I made was you misrepresented my views on whether or not my system would be liberal democracy, right? Whether or not you'd be able to advocate for capitalism in my system. In my system, if you want to go out and advocate for capitalism and say all this social ownership is cringe, you know, we need to privatize all this stuff, you can do that. And I've said that multiple times in multiple different mediums, right? Directly to Destiny as well, right? So anyway, let's go on, because he says more.
And everything is socially owned. It would necessitate the banning of all private investment. Probably, maybe he would allow.
What's the retraction that he's looking for?
I think he's trying to say that he didn't say that he would ban all forms of private ownership. I don't know how complete social ownership has room for any type of private ownership.
Everybody agree with him.
What?
Okay, so again, I can't imagine Destiny is misunderstanding this. It seems absurd. Destiny's saying, I can't imagine how social ownership has any room for private. That's not the retraction I'm looking for. The retraction I'm looking for is that you could have a society with entirely social ownership of capital, but also a society where people advocated against that very system. Now you might say, look, that's not you couldn't.
Okay, wait. So he would be okay with a total. So he is okay with 100% social ownership, but he's just clarifying that he wouldn't necessarily ban the political party, I guess. Okay.
Practically have that. You couldn't practically have a world where everything was totally socially owned and people would politically tolerate that. People would always, practically speaking, in a democratic system want some level of private ownership, to which I would say, maybe you're right. But I also said I'm a Democrat first, okay? I'm not a socialist first. I'm not an egalitarian. There are certain things I prioritize other than these other ideals, and that should be sensible to anybody listening. That obviously you have to kind of weigh the different moral issues that you think are important and make compromises. I say in the piece, I'll say here now, that I think political egalitarianism is a much more important, for a number of reasons, a more important thing to maintain than economic egalitarianism. That it's much, to me at least, if I had to pick a society, and once...
Don't you think you can have an individual preference in regards to an ideology without the will to actually try to enforce it for the entire society? I don't know. Do you think in North Korea or Vietnam or China, where you have single party rules and opposing political parties are banned? Well, he's saying, I guess they wouldn't ban opposing political parties. I just don't know in any of these like vanguard socialist states where any of that has ever happened ever. I don't know where that happens. Like, it seems like it's almost necessitated by, because when they're moving to the socialist form of economic arrangement, they're doing so, he said it himself, that socialism for him is a normative, meaning a moral statement for him. So if socialism is like the moral good, you would have political parties that exist that are advocating for literally immorality. It's just, I don't think in practice, I don't think that can ever be the case. And I think that's why in practice and empirically, historically, socialist states are typically one-party states, and that's it. And there is no opposing political party.
Society was my ideal economic institutions, but it was not free and fair democracy. And another society, which was, let's just say a very, very optimal setup, free and fair democracy, but not my ideal economic institutions, I pick the latter option every single day of the week. And that's not a hard decision for me. That's not a hard decision for me. I have no problem saying or admitting or acquiescing to the idea that, hey, well, Econoboi, if we live in an open and free and fair democracy, people are going to want a lot of private ownership. And it's like, yeah, maybe that's true. People are different. People have different senses of values and prioritize. I believe in democracy first. And if my democratic ideals means that it's ultimately unachievable to totally socialize all production, then to me, that's okay. I'm much more offended by the idea that we ultimately unachievable to use and prioritize. I believe in democracy first. And if my democratic ideals means that it's ultimately unachievable to totally socialize all production, then to me, that's okay. I'm much more offended by the idea that we wouldn't allow free and fair democracy than the idea that we would have 20% of wealth of society be owned in private hands, because we still got the other 80%. And gosh, this democracy thing seems to be working out pretty fucking well, right? So that's
like, I don't know. I guess we'll find out tomorrow. Like, what does that look like in practice when the government owns 80% of every single business? What does that even mean? So like, if I start a new business, like because you guys don't understand, or some of you maybe don't understand, or maybe I'm retarded. What that means in practice is that, like, if I want to start a business, let's say I want to start a business selling instruments, okay, I would have to go to the government and get permission to do that. I wouldn't be able to do that on my own because hiring employees is unethical. It would have to be started cooperatively. And then if the government's got an 80% stake in my business, that means that whatever business I start, I have to go to the government for approval to say, hey, I'm starting a business. Can you fund me 80% of the startup money? Because if I start the business at 100% investment, at some point, I'm going to be forced to sell 80% of my business to the government, right? Which means nobody's going to start any new businesses. It'll all have to be done through some kind of central committee, some kind of planning.
That's my point here.
And somebody said that you guys are cowering in fear to morons.
That's true.
It says it sucks that your co-hosts are closet tanky regards.
Wait, hold on.
It's not just
Wait, just pit stop here real quick.
apt to be illiberal. He is explicitly illiberal, right?
You're gonna have to provide me what's the evidence that he's explicitly anti-liberal in the sense of, when you say anti-liberal, do you mean anti against liberals?
He is an ML Marxist.
Does he identify as an ML Marxist?
Okay.
I'm asking you that. Is that a fair question? Wait, why are you laughing? Is that a fair?
When he says illiberal, I feel like Pisco's making, I can't tell if I'm being uncharitable. I think Pisco, it sounded like Pisco was making the liberal like the Democratic Party. No, illiberal like when Trump made this mistake of Western liberalism. He means like illiberal like against liberalism broadly as a concept.
Fair question.
I laughed because I saw you go through part of that transcript on the conversation between him and Ethan on re-education camps. And one, I thought you were incredibly charitable, and two, I don't think you got it right in that interpretation. I have it here if you want to go through it.
Yeah, we can, and we definitely should. I'm asking though as a question. Do you think it's a crazy question to ask? Well, you said he's a Marxist-Leninist. Does he identify as such? Is that a crazy question?
I think it's hard with Hasan because you hear a bunch of different things from him. But I think it's in the same way Nick Fuentes doesn't call himself a Nazi.
Well, no, but he calls himself a Christian nationalist. He calls himself anti-Semitic.
But he doesn't call himself a Nazi.
Yeah, I know, but he defines himself in other ways. Yeah, I understand. But is it crazy for me to ask what does he identify as? What does he state his belief is? That's not a crazy thing to ask.
Like he should just make him watch the deprogram thing. Hasan literally is sitting on a show with other Marxist-Leninists, with other tankies, saying, my purpose is to sit here as this part of the radicalization funnel to radicalize more people towards more hardcore, left-leaning beliefs without explicitly. It's crazy that Hasan gives the whole game away public. He says it explicitly public. He says all of it. We don't have to guess. We know what he does. We know what he says.
My understanding is that the way Hasan is talked about is I think he's openly called himself a communist. He's at the very least called himself a democratic socialist.
Erin calls herself a communist. That can mean different. I'm just asking you.
Erin is also a tanky. Erin is a tanky. She's a Marxist-Leninist.
Is it a ridiculous question for me to say, how does he identify? Does he say he's a Marxist-Leninist? What's the support that he's a Marxist-Leninist?
Well, the reason that there's a lot of reasons, but I don't know what the point of this question is, because all I'm saying is we can look at his beliefs, see that they are anti-liberal, and the title of Marxist-Leninist isn't that important.
No, because you were saying that like you took issue with me saying, and I think he's more apt to be a liberal than Kyle Kalinske. Like, he's not just apt to be a liberal; he's a Marxist-Leninist. And I'm just like, okay,
I said he's explicitly a liberal. Maybe he doesn't fall under that specific title of Marxist-Leninist. I don't watch enough Hasan to quote him specifically saying I'm a Marxist-Leninist. But
like, granted you, he's more illiberal than Kyle Kalinske, and I was.
But I'm not saying he's more illiberal. I'm saying he's explicitly illiberal. Like he hates liberals. He doesn't want a liberal system.
If what you mean by liberal is he doesn't like liberals, agreed. He's anti-liberal in the sense that he does not.
Well,
like
I also
liberals.
mean that I mean he also does not want a liberal system of government or society.
By that meaning that he would be in favor of getting rid of what
like private property, private enterprise, like the commodification of a whole bunch of things. Like he wants like a centrally planned economy, probably significantly curtailing a lot of different types of political freedoms, things that would revolve around like a vanguard party. Like this is the ML shit.
Get rid of like free speech. He would get rid of private property.
Yes, yes.
Where's the evidence that he would get rid of free speech?
The re-education camps is.
That's the best piece of evidence that he would get rid of free speech.
That's a blatant one.
Is that the best piece of evidence that he's against free speech?
The best. I'm trying to think. Probably, yeah.
Okay, I don't think that moves me on. Like, that's your.
Do you want to go
through
through his statements?
You're saying that's the best piece of evidence that he's against free speech, right?
The re-education thing I think is blatant. Okay.
Okay. So in general, I just want before we will read it. But if my reading is correct, if it's correct to say he only wants to apply re-education as where there's a crime as a conditioned precedent, you wouldn't have an issue with that in the abstract, correct? And it wouldn't be against free speech, would it?
As a crime and what?
Reading is correct. If it's correct to say he only wants to apply re-education as where there's a crime as a conditioned precedent, you wouldn't have an issue with that in the abstract, correct? And it wouldn't be against free speech, would it?
I don't want to. Let's just go through it.
Wait, even in principle, if I say, for example, in our system,
the thing is like that's our system right now. Like, right?
Yeah.
Like if we're just punishing people who are violent and doing crimes, that's just our system.
Yeah, I agree. So in principle, if someone said, hey, if we get to a socialist system and as part of the punishment and rehabilitation of crimes, we have education programs to better integrate into society and accept our socialist values as a precedent to a crime, you wouldn't necessarily have a problem, like an anti-free speech for that, given that we do similar things to prisoners today.
This is a very tricky. I feel like I can't tell if these are intentional or not. The answer is actually no, right? Like if I shouldn't have even granted this earlier because I couldn't believe anybody would actually say this. We send people to prison for crimes. We do not re-educate people ideologically. When we talk about like re-education in our current system, we're talking about like actually do book reports and get a college degree while in prison, or learn how to like do a trade or work a job in prison. We're not talking about change your ideology from Republican to Democrat, or from liberalism or authoritarianism to communism. We're not talking about that type of re-education. That is the type of re-education that Hasan was talking about. That's why the examples that he was giving were things like white terror or whatever. These were ideologically informed types of violence that he would ideologically re-educate people out of. It's not really what we do in prisons today. When I said earlier, we already do this, it was more like we already send people to jail for doing crime, but we don't actually like ideologically re-educate them where ideology is defined as your actual like political or moral philosophy in the world, unless it's like just your moral philosophy is just committing violence or whatever.
Yeah, but
and other countries do this as well.
I understand that, but like he's not even in that example even in of itself, and I'll get to this in the transcript. He's not even talking about speech there. He's just talking about violent crime and how you would handle that, and like that's all.
Wait. So we'll definitely do not get anxious. We'll go. I am here. It is 2:30 in the morning. We'll get into the transcript. I'm here for it. I'm here for us to go parse it line through line. Okay. But I'm just asking you in principle. There's nothing anti-free speech, is there, about as a consequence for a criminal action, allowing for or mandating education programs, correct?
Like how he does this for education programs. Oh, that can't be real. That can't. When they talk about re-education, they just mean sending you to go get your GED. That can't be a real statement. That can't possibly be real. Hasan just wants more people to have their bachelors. Like,
action.
He means go to community college.
Allowing for or mandating education programs, correct? We allow slavery.
I'll lightly say yes. There's nothing inherently. Although again, it depends on the crime. But
okay, so I totally agree that it depends on if you're just making political crimes. Then obviously this is all just a way to launder, right? You're saying it's because of crimes, but the crimes themselves are political offenses against speech. In which case, that itself would, like, it's not helpful if the crime itself is speech related, and you say, well, the re-education is just for the crime, but you define the crime in such a way as to be, viewpoint not neutral, right? So I agree with you on that. So now let's actually look at what he said. Okay.
Okay. I have it here. Ethan says, if the will of the people is to go back to do more of a social democracy, is that something that a socialist country should move towards, or should there be resistance in the government to keep socialism? Hasan says, I think the resistance should be akin to how capitalist governments have resisted. Now, I'll clarify here. Hasan thinks that capitalist governments resist socialism and communism.
Oh, good job, whoever this is. Nice.
Through violence. He explicitly says this. This is how he thinks capitalists control and seclude communism from taking over the world. And then he goes on to say, historically, any kind of socialist movement, not to that same degree. I think there's a speak into how capitalist governments have resisted. Historically, any kind of socialist movement, not to that same degree of violence. So here he's saying there will be violence, but not to the same degree as capitalists, supposedly.
Well, hang on. So let's read it. So you're saying I think the resistance should be akin to how capitalist governments have resisted historically any kind of socialist movement, not to that same degree of violence, but yes, the solution to that will always be education and offering more. So you think that means that he does think that we should have violence against people who use speech?
Yes, because like he says, he wants to do it akin to how capitalist governments do it, and he thinks capitalist governments use violence, and he even says even said we should use violence, but not to the same degree.
Where does he say that capitalist governments have historically? Well, I'll grant that he says that capitalist governments have used violence to resist historically socialist movements, right? By which he means, I assume,
like the Cold War stuff, you know.
So in the Cold War situation, what did they do?
Like when we like subvert governments, or when we like in like places like El Salvador and like I guess South Korea.
Right? So this is talking about. So I don't understand him to be referring to American foreign policy abroad. I think he's talking about domestic government. That's Ethan.
Hasan is literally on record stating, what did he say directly? If the American government has a position on something, if you have the opposite position, you're basically always going to be correct. Hasan obviously, massively, ideologically opposes the U.S. government and our foreign policy. Wait, was it in the violent clip? The one that apparently LSF fucking banned this and said it was a bad interpretation. Was it in that one where Hasan was speaking next to Ted Lorenz, where he said something like, as long as we can get the United States out of the way, there'll be like a globalist, like kind of global socialist revolution or something along those lines? Was that clip? Does anybody have a link to that TikTok? We can listen to it again. Like he says it outright.
More of it as well. I feel that in the city as well. Like I feel that there is a camaraderie and there is.
But like, I think in the real world, the normies are way more radical than the way that the media is presenting this like liberal style resistance right now. I see Deborah's and Barbara's like wine moms on Facebook being like, Hakeem Jeffries, you need to go out and die. You need to go out and put your body on the line. What the fuck are you doing? And it's like literally like a 50-year-old lady on Facebook with her government name. And we kind of saw a bit of that with the North Carolina it wasn't Thomas Massey, Tom Tillis, where there were people like, I'm a 77-year-old veteran and I'm gonna this 1-8 you drive and messages they were leaving in this dude's office, and he's resigning. Like he's literally, this is his. People are a lot more radical now. This is a time. It's an unprecedented time to really get others on board. To explain to them that it's not your neighbors, it's not like a Guatemalan migrant that is responsible for all the shit that you're going through on a daily basis. It's not a trans person. I said this on Theo Vaughn's podcast as well. I was like, a trans person is not your landlord, unless, I mean, we're in LA, maybe you guys got a trans landlord, I don't know, but
look at the juxtaposition there, right? It's hijacking the progressive issues, right? So it's not the immigrant, it's not the trans person, right? It's the conservative that's trying to take away the rights from these people? No. It's the capital class, right? That's what the juxtaposition is. This is right here. This is like and he does this a lot. I don't even know if I call this stuff out because I feel like it's just so obvious, right? It's always trying to hide. This is why he always he plays this game where sometimes he's a super progressive and other times he becomes like the kind of like ML Tanky guy. It's because he's trying to get those people with the idpol stuff and then make them care about idpol, but not really identity politics. It's idpol contrasted against like class consciousness, right? Yeah, they're trying to come after the gays and the trans and the immigrants, and it's not MAGA, it's not conservatives, it's capitalists, right? That's what he always does.
But for the most part, it's your landlord, it's your bosses that are fucking you over, it's capital owners that are fucking you over.
Your landlords and your bosses and capital owners are the reason why trans people lost access to healthcare in the United States.
And I think this is a unique opportunity to get even Deborah's and Barbara's on board with that, like white wine moms. And you actually wrote about this, and it was a great video where you talked about, someone has to do it. See, when I say that, everyone knows exactly what I mean. Which is, I think that shows that there is a lot of anger, a lot of resentment, and untapped potential, untapped revolutionary potential, as a matter of fact. And it's a great opportunity for organizing, I think, in these unprecedentedly horrible times. So that's what I think.
Fuck, he didn't say it here. I wonder if he said it before. Can I not times two this fucking
platform and be able to speak more freely outside of
Oh, I
the
can.
mainstream
Fuck.
media. But we're seeing this like just record kind of
Weird space to watch because I feel like scary, or not scary, that is.
be able to speak more freely outside of the mainstream media. Free speech, whether it's the media, speech online. And both the Democrats and the Republicans are aligned on censorship. They're manufacturing a moral panic around the internet and social
Both the Democrats and the Republicans are aligned on censorship. Oh, okay, Chief.
media, and telling people to support things like the Kids Online Safety Act, this horrible, horrible censorship bill. They're trying to repeal Section 230, which is a law that essentially protects speech online. So I think that we need to do everything we can to protect it. To even be able to have episodes like South Park, and for people like Hasan, and need to be able to express ourselves freely as journalists still, in this time.
Yeah, I also wanted to talk about something else that's kind of tangentially related to the South Park thing, because we were talking about that. Like, I'm glad that, the faillennials and the boomer liberals, they like, Donald Trump has a tiny penis, it's cool, but like, I think in the real world, the normies have...
Okay, fuck, it wasn't here. It was some other place. Fuck, some other place where he it's like a murmur at the end of a sentence, but he's basically saying that, like, if the U.S. can get out of the way, then the global, like, socialist class consciousness can emerge. I'm pretty sure it was Hasan that said it. Maybe it was somebody else, but I don't have the clip offhand, I guess. I don't know who. Revolutionary potential is absolutely an illusion for violence. Revolutionary and revolution always refers to like a socialist revolution, yes.
The scope of Ethan's question is about the will of the people, that is to say the American people.
Wasn't it in the deprogram thing? Maybe it might have been. Maybe it was in the deprogram clip that we listened to.
American foreign policy abroad. I think he's talking about domestic government. The scope of Ethan's question is about the will of the people, that is to say the American people.
Yeah.
Like, keep in mind, too, the context for Ethan's conversation with Hasan here is Hasan is supposed to be the knowing politics guy. Ethan is supposed to be the politics retarded guy. And he's speaking to a politically uninformed audience, supposedly. So how is there so much confusion here over what Hasan is saying? Like, wouldn't it behoove him to be as crystal clear as possible about his meaning and his intent behind everything?
Okay. But no, I'm just saying that, like, his problem, like, when he says it's akin to how capitalist governments have resisted, like, he'll also say that capitalists within the U.S. have resisted communism through violence, and he'll reference like McCarthyism.
Yeah, okay, but he's saying not to that same degree of violence, but yes, we should do some stuff.
Okay,
so it's unclear what he's talking about, right?
Oh my God, it's unclear what he means, because he just says less violence. That could mean no violence, because technically, if somebody has 100% violence and another person has 0% violence, 0% violence would be less violence than 100% violence, right?
Not to that same degree of violence, but yes, that we should do some stuff.
Okay,
so it's kind of unclear. It's unclear what he's talking about, right?
Okay, but that's by design. And two,
like, yes, because I was going to say, even if it is unclear, you've already conceded, in my opinion, the entire argument. Like, that, you've already, like, conceded that. Like, unclear is not acceptable when you're being asked about this here, right? Like, do you think that we should rape women in response to them committing crimes? Well, I mean, they rape women in some Middle Eastern societies in response to certain crimes. I don't think we should rape them as much as they do there. And it's like, okay. I mean, like, it's kind of like an ambiguous answer. Like, I mean, he says less in there. Like, you would never, ever, ever grant that. That would be a ridiculous answer. That's an unhinged answer. What do you mean less than? What? What does that even mean?
Also, I appreciate the charity with which you view people's arguments, but we have to remember, okay, and this is what I don't like about your analysis of this, is that
Hasan has explicitly said that he thrives in the ambiguity. It's like somebody comes out and they say, like, I dog whistle a whole bunch of positions so that it's hard to know exactly where I'm at so that I can radicalize people. And then somebody's arguing, like, don't you think this guy's saying a lot of insane shit? And then you're like, I don't really know if he's saying a lot of insane shit. I feel like a lot of it is actually quite ambiguous. And it's like, yeah, that's the point. He literally said that. He said that. That's the whole point.
Appreciate the charity with which you view people's arguments, but we have to remember, okay, and this is what I don't like about your analysis of this, is that Hasan is purposefully downplaying his rhetoric to funnel people into more radical positions. So when you just take him at his word in these conversations, when we know that his whole purpose is to downplay his position, to radicalize people further, then
I'm open to that.
Well, what are we doing?
So I want to say I'm open to that. Then if we can just...
You don't have to be open to that. Hasan has literally explicitly said that.
Agree that literally, as the word, as he's stating here, a good faith interpretation would not be that I'm against taking the whole quote in its context. The best faith interpretation of that, just the words and the context of the specific quote, putting aside the issues of him mask on, that the words themselves aren't saying we should get rid of the First Amendment and that we should put people in jail just because they think differently. That's not what the words actually say in context.
That's not what the words actually say. I think that's going beyond good faith into like cover or like cope.
Wait, Hasan ML clips. Does he actually say he's an ML? I didn't think he actually like outwardly said that.
Many people in here did not start off as like card-carrying Marxist-Leninists, okay? As a matter of fact, no one does. It's crazy.
Does he really say this now?
That's it. That's why I always... Oh, she knows.
Okay. Jesus. ML is a tanky. That is a tanky. Okay? That's what that means. They're tankies.
Because of this perspective that I have.
Hold on.
It sounds like a guy doing good work, but the reverse purity argument is a miss for me. What? No. I mean, it might be a miss for you, but notice how you feel safe in this community. Here, I'll give you the greatest example. You want to know why you get to be in a fucking community with like 32,000 like-minded people, as opposed to your splinter Discord that you occupy otherwise, where you guys do fake reading, reading seminars or whatever? Because of this perspective that I have. Many people in here did not start off as like card-carrying Marxist-Leninists, okay?
Many people here don't start off as, that's what he's saying, right?
Many people in here did not start off as
Did
like
not start
card-carrying
off
Marxist-Leninists.
as card-carrying Marxist-Leninists. That's insane.
Okay? As a matter of fact, no one does. It's crazy. That's it. That's why I always... Oh, she knows. What? Trump's anti-Semitism chief shares Jew card post from white supremacists. Leo Terrell, who runs the DOJ's anti-Semitism task force, shared a post from the former leader of an organization that promoted the Nazification of America. What? Leo Terrell, the civil rights attorney in charge of President Donald Trump's anti-Semitism task force, shared a post on the social media platform X on Friday from a notorious white supremacist leader. Trump has the ability to revoke someone's Jew card, said the post, which included the video of the president saying that the Senate majority...
Okay, was that it for that one? What is this?
Credibility, no gloves, let him have it, hold him to account. I mean, I don't really care about the petty shit. I just want to have this conversation, and more importantly, I want his audience to actually hear the truth. That is what I care about. Ironically enough, he believes that that's what he wants to do as well, to have my audience hear the truth about the dangerous nature, not realizing that my audience probably thinks I'm fucking not radical enough, you know? half of this community thinks I'm a pussy for not running around constantly and just like, I don't know, flying the banners, okay? So I don't know why he thinks that, I don't know why he legitimately and unironically thinks that like people are going to fucking be like, wow, I can't believe Hasan offered analysis and context to why resistance militancy exists against an apartheid regime that is doing fucking genocide and blowing the shit out of every neighboring country. I can't believe he said that. Oh no, the horror. Like, does he not realize that these are my points that I've said on my stream with additional fucking statements on top of that? I don't know why he thinks that my audience is going to be like, wow, this is a bridge too far. What's next? Are you going to say that you have Marxist-Leninist tendencies? How dare you?
Jesus. Okay.
Worse than be called fat and ugly, in my opinion.
Based.
Until you find a more appropriate and more successful method of building a Marxist-Leninist vanguard party, I'm gonna keep doing what I'm doing, okay? And you do you.
Wow,
If you build it, I'll be there by your side.
Jesus
You understand?
Christ.
Try it.
Jesus Christ. Okay. I might have even watched that one before. Okay. I don't know. I'm just crazy. I didn't. Okay. He's super blatant and open about this. All right. In case you don't know where the term tanky comes from, there was a Hungarian revolution in the 50s where they tried to revolt against the Soviet Union. I don't know why. Those political parties were amazing and awesome. And I think as part of the counter to the revolution, Khrushchev, I think the meme is that he literally rolled tanks into Budapest and was running people over, right? I think is the, maybe that should be, I shouldn't call it a meme, I'm sorry. But they like rolled tanks out to like oppress the revolting civilian population. But you know, whatever.
For Hasan, like
so you can say,
and I don't think you're like doing this because Hasan believes Hasan. I'm just saying, like, if you're going this hard to like be like, well, just by the text that he says, he means this, or it doesn't go against.
I'm sorry,
speech.
I just did that for Destiny this entire time about like this little tweet thread where we were parsing like every single tiny word in ways that are like picking apart. So
parsing every single tiny word in ways we're picking apart. I know that Pisco's not the one who just said it about me. Excuse me, Mr. Is this dispositive and blah blah blah? No, come on. These words are meaningfully different. Like, it matters when you say the difference between voting for somebody versus supporting somebody versus voting for somebody who's going to have the ability to enact their policy versus voting for somebody who's going to be politically ineffective. These are all important distinctions.
I feel like I do this for everybody. I try to do this for everybody, but let's talk about it. People have said for me, Hasan argues for re-education camps. They point to this, and I'm like, that's not what he's arguing for if you just take the words. And you're like, oh, come on, you believe him? Well, okay, you can say that he is masking the true nefarious.
I don't like that Pisco is saying that, like, okay, hypothetically, let's hypothetically grant, that Hitler really didn't like Jewish people. Okay, well, if I grant you, no! First of all, we don't need a granting. We just need a shared reality. Hasan has openly, blatantly said this. He has openly, blatantly said this multiple times, that he masks in order to attract liberals to his political movement. We know this. This is not like a...
If anything, I'm more ML and less liberal than you are, you anarchist idiot.
This is in 2021. Like, Hasan is like open about this.
Scope of what he's saying, but then just don't sell this as the place in which he blatantly advocates for the bad thing. Then you should say something weaker, like, oh, this is where he signals that he'd be in favor. But I think the reason people point...
Hasan will never blatantly advocate for it, although he's basically done that because he literally says explicitly that I'm here to dog whistle and radicalize people down the funnel. What the fuck?
This is because he says he's in favor of re-education.
I mean, that's what looks bad. I think it gets worse even as you go down further into the transcript, into what he says.
Okay.
So after this whole section of, but I think that the solution will always be education, offering more education. Ethan says, re-education? Hasan says, re-education, certainly. Yeah, I know that's like a trigger word. Ethan says, let's put them in camps. Hasan says, no, not like that. No, like that. I know that's a trigger word because people are like, what do you mean by that? Are you talking about like resident schools or Xinjiang? And Ethan says,
he's clarifying,
right? And Hasan says, yeah.
So this is him clarifying everything that he just said above. He's trying to clarify what he said above. Yeah.
Yes. He goes, no.
And he's clarifying it because Ethan thinks he's in favor of Vanguard Party, forced not enslavement, imprisonment of ideological enemies. Okay, that's what he's asking for clarification on.
No, I don't agree with that, which is something I openly criticize as well. That's not good. The massive surveillance apparatus they built is not good. And so then Ethan reiterates, he goes, so
and then Hasan generalizes. He backs out and he generalizes. He doesn't answer the core of that question. It's like, you have to realize the strategy here. You have to know what's going on, right? Like, how do you discipline your kids? Well, I will send them to timeout. Sometimes I will chain them to the radiator and punch them as hard as I can until they pass out. Other times I'll revoke their computer privileges. And then somebody's like, wait, hold on. Like, do you like you beat the shit out of your kids? And it's like, I think there's a lot of different ways you can discipline kids. When I take away the computer, I try to make it so that like if I take away the computer, you can earn it back if you do certain chores. And I try not to be like, I punish them so much that they have, no place to go and then no punishment matters at that point, It's like, that's not really what I was asking about. Wait, that's not really what the question was about there. Like, how can you not see this?
What would be good about a socialist re-education camp for capitalists? And Hasan goes on, I don't think it would be camps. It depends on crimes, right? This is where he talks about the crimes. Yeah. Like, are people committing crimes at the behest of this cause? If there's a socialist state and someone is doing like white terror. Okay, we'll pause here.
Yes, he's not just saying any crime. He's using explicit words here to talk about capitalism crimes.
What the fuck is he bringing up? What does that have to do with socialism?
Yes.
So ideological, I think he's trying to imply some kind of ideological crime, right?
Not imply, he's explicitly saying it. I want to murder Kyle Johnson. And it's like, damn, what do you think he's saying? He's like, I think he's implying that he wants to hurt Kyle Johnson. I think there's a heavy implication there. No, that's not what implication means. He's saying it outright. He's just explicitly saying it.
Some crime.
Yeah, he's explying it. Is there a word for exply? When you imply something, can you exply something? There's got to be some kind of verb there, right?
Nothing to do with capitalists versus socialists, right? White terror has nothing to do with capitalism.
Yeah, he's like oppressor, oppressee stuff. So everything good and everything or everything bad is oppressor, white, capitalist. So yeah, he has this view that we don't agree with, where capitalism is racialized and it's all intersectional. I don't agree. I think it's fucking
what? How did we macro out to that take?
Stupid, but it's ready context.
Like a dodge.
I don't think it's a dodge at all, right? He's basically saying if there's a socialist state and someone is doing like white terror or is doing some kind of South Korean style purge of communists, he's basically saying if someone is doing some kind of ideological crime, specifically tying it to crime, right? So purges and terror, those are.
Why would you have to tie it to crime? I don't understand why he keeps missing the point, right? Like, how would you enforce the law in your society? Well, if women were committing violent acts and if women were out here doing these things like theft and arson, it's like, wait a second, why are we talking about women doing crime? No, he's tying it explicitly to crime. You agree? Hold on. I'm sorry. Are you saying that people shouldn't be locked up for committing crimes, for doing arson, for violent stuff? It's like, well, yeah, but why are we tying it to the women thing? That's kind of weird, no? I don't know how you can miss the point on every single sentence. It's like it's the actual Matrix. It's the actual Matrix, and it's like the point, and it's like like what? What are we doing here?
He's basically saying if someone is doing some kind of ideological crime, specifically tying it to crime, right? So purges and terror, those are crimes that have also a nexus to ideology. And so I think if you take him in good faith, because if there's a social state and someone's doing like white terror, let's say, or someone's doing a South Korean style purge of communists, if you're doing some kind of ideological violence, then ... That's the best basic interpretation of what he's saying.
Then what if the ideological violence isn't related to... Well, actually, this is the problem. All he's saying here is like, in a socialist society, we're against like violent crime. And it's like, it's sidestepping...
Oh, fuck. I think you're right on that. No, Wait, hold on. I'm so confused here. I don't know. I can't tell if Pisco has just never dived into leftist shit before. I'm so sorry. Fuck, I didn't even consider that. The reason why Pisco brought up that oppressor-oppressee thing and everything is because he thought that white terror meant like white people terror. He thought that was a racial thing. I think that's some, fuck, why did I just see this? It had to do with like fighting against revolutionaries in Spain? In France? Oh my God, in Spain. Oh no, and everywhere. Just kidding. The first white terror. This is like politically oriented stuff. This is not like white people. So I don't know why a 2-year period of repressive violence by counter-revolutionary soldiers being against the revolution in this sense is always like against like socialism. Not saying that you should use violence against socialists, by the way. Not good. That's what the Nazis did. Well, and against liberals too. But when he said white terror, he didn't mean like white people. There's no way that Pisco thought that. I can't. There's no way.
The meat of what Ethan's asking, because Ethan's asking, how would you re-educate capitalists? And he's saying, well, we would throw them in camps if they're violent. And
No,
like,
he says, I don't think it would be camps. He's saying it wouldn't be camps. It would be.
Oh, hold on. I didn't know that. Somebody just said the White Army was the side that fought against Lenin and Stalin in the Russian Civil War. Like, I don't know. I don't know any history for the Russian Civil War. Wait, why are socialists so obsessed with like colors, like Orange Revolution and brown shirts and red shirts and the white? Why do they all use colors for everything? What about like shapes? Could we be like the rectangle? I'm just kidding.
Like, they would go in prison, and it would be a prison instead of camps or whatever, and it would be based off of ideological violence. But it's like,
well, that's what he literally says, correct?
But the issue is like, again, he's not answering this. He's just sidestepping it.
Yes.
Because
Wait, no, what is he not answering? Sorry, what is he not answering? So Ethan is.
Oh my God.
So what would be good? What would be good a socialist re-education camp for capitalists? And Hasan answers. I says, I don't think it would be camps. He's saying I don't agree that it would be good.
Right.
And so now he's trying to clarify what he means on everything above. And his clarification, again, you can say that he's mask on, and that at this point he's trying to hide his true intentions and make it seem less bad than it is. You can make that argument. But all I'm saying, he is not literally arguing for re-education camps as classically understood. He's arguing for re-education in the context of ideological crime, violent crime specifically. That's what he's saying.
Yeah, but
what does that even mean?
But the reason I'm saying he's sidestepping it is because this is like we could do this in our system now, and it has nothing to do with socialism, right? If somebody was a violent capitalist and they said we should have no tariffs ever, and I'm gonna go bomb you, and they go and try and bomb somebody, that's the same exact thing. But we know Hasan doesn't like the system, and he thinks it's corrupt or whatever. So like. It just seems like a sidestep because he's not answering really like what are you doing with capitalists?
No. So this is what the extra bit. So you're saying like he's sidestepping. He's being he's being like kind of dodgy because he's not adding like what's different about the system to the current system. Is that what you're saying? Basically, is we shouldn't read in these caveats.
He's just saying what already exists. And he's like, oh, it's not that bad.
Well, no, but he's not saying what already exists. I know the caller is. He's obviously trying to apply something more because if we do Pisco's reading of this, then Hasan's literally just saying nothing. He's just talking about the system as it already exists. And what's even the point of having this conversation or talking about any of this at all?
It exists.
I'll add you the extra thing that doesn't exist now, right? The extra thing is he's explicitly arguing for ideological re-education, right? He's basically saying this is something we don't have, right, in terms of socialism.
I don't know, because later on he kind of just says like, oh, we kind of do this with prisons right now when we try to do like rehabilitation.
The difference is the following, right? So when people do crimes, let's say someone does like a crime against communists. There are people who do that, right? There are people who are crazy who attack people for being communists. When they do that and they go to prison, we don't do rehabilitative like. And this is why socialism is good, right? We don't do that.
Yeah.
Hasan is arguing that there's some re-education tied to pro-socialism. He is saying that. That's different than how we operate now.
What?
But all he's saying is it's predicated on some kind of ideological offense with a nexus to a violent crime. That's what he's saying. So it is different from the current system in that there's ideological reinforcement at the point of criminal punishment. But that is different than now, but it's also not re-education camps. It's classically understood. Agreed?
Like, keep in mind, like somebody linked me this from a couple of years ago. Like Hasan believes that, like, for instance, like all police officers exist. This is a very common socialist talking point. That the police only exist to protect private property, meaning capitalist stuff. That's why whenever they say things like, "Oh, the police are there to protect you," you might think that like, "Oh, they're making some kind of like snide or mean comment about how cops are assholes or cops suck at their job or cops sometimes neglect to do their duty." What they're saying is that's an ideologically loaded statement saying cops do not exist to protect citizens from crimes. Cops only exist to protect capital owners from the proletariat rising up.
Part of the profession under false pretenses, okay? But cops as a profession, police as a profession, protect and serve the interests of capital. And in that process, there are plenty of unjustifiable laws that you would have a moral issue with, okay, personally, on an individual basis, that they uphold in the violent ways that they uphold them, okay? So while they are in the process of being a cop, while they're doing cop shit, when they have the badge on, they are behaving in a bad way, okay?
So keep in mind, I can't even believe I have to draw these connections. I feel schizophrenic having to draw the most obvious connections in the world. When he says people that are doing violence, he doesn't just mean somebody that's like killing somebody or breaking into a house. Like the police are an institution of violence. If you call the cops on somebody and they're brown and they're stealing something, or if they're anybody, I guess, the race doesn't matter, and the cops come and stop them from stealing something, that's unjustified violence from the cop side of things. This is why Hasan also supports like theft from capital owners. That's why Hasan had the meme about redistributing the Nikes. Hasan, fuck, is this it?
There's good stuff happening on the protest side always. Like, you only see the looting of Target. You don't see the redistribution of the goods that they took from Target back to the community. Because a lot of these neighborhoods are now turning into fucking food deserts where you have to drive 30 minutes to an hour to go get food.
I can't believe I'm even having to explain it. It's like so obviously like front and center. None of this is hidden.
Okay, by design, their job requires them and urges them to behave in a violent manner. So even if you're an otherwise good person, when you're a cop, when you have the badge on, you are doing shit that cops do and upholding unjustifiable laws. There are so many examples of this, like cops going up and like arresting an old lady who is feeding homeless people. Like no one would ever consider that to be a normal or a good thing, but cops are doing that because it's a part of their fucking job. That's what that means, okay? Now, on top of that, the system also demands they be violent because they are the authority. They're supposed to be upholding laws, okay? Some of which we all understand are unjustifiable and inhumane and cruel. Now, in order to do that, they have to be violent. They're exercising the state's monopoly on violence. And while they're doing that, when they do things like that, the state also protects them. So they're not actually following the book like a normal human being. They're behaving in a way where they are above the law. They're doing things, just like I mentioned, that no human being would consider to be normal or good or kind as a part of their job. And the state expects them to do that, and the state defends them when they do that. Qualified immunity is one example of this. There are many Supreme Court cases where the system basically has legalized their murders, okay, their murder charges, and have codified their lack of accountability. Cops have no duty to actually protect the citizens. This is the law. Technically, if they see a crime happening and they do nothing, like in Uvalde, they will not be charged for it. There's no expectation. Zero. That is the law. A cop, however, can kill someone. Whether they are holding a gun to the cop's face, or whether they are unarmed, or whether they are unarmed and running away, a cop can still legally get away with murder, as long as they claim that they had a genuine threat for their own safety, or that they had a genuine assessment.
Do police exist in Hasan's Socialist Utopia? They always talk around it in a weird way of like community policing. They'll never give you like a direct exact answer for this ever.
There, where they were fearful for the safety of others. That is also codified. That is institutionalized and is completely fucking legal. I cannot imagine if you like for 1 second, I'm not the type of person who says like, we don't need an organization that is going to solve crimes. We don't need an organization such as policing, okay, that will maintain the presence of law and order or whatever in a civilized society. Of course, I believe that there's always going to be need for detective work. I believe that there's always going to be need for a force like that, whether it's democratically organized or not. I'm not saying that like, you know, cops or police as an institution or the theoretical purpose of policing is just fraught. Okay, I'm not saying that. However, the way that it currently works in society is not the way that it's supposed to work in theory. And if you, for a brief moment, just stop thinking about these people as like police and all of the other social conditioning that teaches you that what they're doing is good, all the movies that you've seen, and think about them like a band of untrained, oftentimes right-wing, overwhelmingly right-wing, unaccountable bullies with all the gear that you would normally see on a fucking occupying force, bullying people that they have genuine disdain for, working at the behest of the wealthy, well, that system is completely fucked.
Cops only exist to serve the capitalist agenda, okay?
Okay.
Yes or no?
Okay.
Do you agree?
I mean,
do you agree?
Kind of.
And
I'll give you half. I'll give you half agree because again, like it's this is I know it's annoying because I know we're trying to be like the best faith or whatever.
Yeah, assume no.
But, like,
but what's stopping you from
assume
saying
no
yes?
mask on? Assume no mask on.
Assume no mask on. It's not describing. Assume no mask on. It's not literally describing re-education camps. You have to have some other way to. So like if I said this, if I said, or if let's say Econoboi said the following. So I'm in favor of re-education camps, but only as a condition of precedent to a crime. And obviously, like this wouldn't be like what they do in communist China. This would be different. Just re-education where we would reinforce socialism values, but only after crime.
Like it's so crazy to me that we're applying this level of charity to all the shit Hasan says. But meanwhile, if they ask you coming back into the United States, oh, what do you do for work? Unconstitutional. That's not viewpoint neutral. He's oppressing his civil rights. This is the worst fucking thing to ever happen. He's definitely trying to condemn him based on his political beliefs. He's definitely just hunting his son. Like, holy fuck. Like, it is the, I don't even want to call it charitable, because it's not even really charitable towards Hasan. It's just a poor reading or a misunderstanding of, or a refusal to engage with the plethora of stuff that Hasan has littered his commentary field with. You cannot miss all of the signs that Hasan has posted up, okay, on neon lit billboards everywhere, advertising his political belief. But then when it comes to Hasan's, unlawful detainment, it's like instantly, he's like 100%, I'm 100% positive, I've been completely vindicated, even though Hasan lied about that entire story. That's now basically proven that Hasan lied about that story. He laughed it off when people accused about him lying about that story, and there was never any proof or any evidence of any point of viewpoint discrimination thing ever. Even by Hasan's own account, he literally went through, got questioned, and left unencumbered, right? Even though Piskov was completely and utterly wrong on every single part of that, right? He thinks that he's completely, totally right on all of it, with the most uncharitable reading ever of what an agent might be asking you at the gate. But now when it comes to the Hasan reading, it's like the most unbelievable, again, I don't want to call it charitable, it's the biggest misapplication of any kind of logic or common sense to anything Hasan has ever said ever. It's like unbelievable.
If Econoboi said that, you would never, would you say, he is arguing for re-education camps, right? Wait, Matthew, I don't agree with this policy. People do this, and I'm not yelling at you. I don't agree with this policy. I don't think the government should be doing this kind of ideological reinforcement. I don't agree with it. I'm just saying this isn't what is being sold to me by its literal terms. Now, there could be some other mask-on reasons to doubt the sincerity, but the words that are being used in context do not describe classical re-education camps. They just don't.
Okay, I would agree. at least right now, I don't know where the heck Econoboi is heading, so I'll say it right now. Okay, but like, I just have to, because this is a frustrating conversation, because just follow me and then we can get off. It's just annoying. We would never ever do this for the likes of Jordan Peterson. We would never do this for Candace Owens. We would never do this for Nick Fuentes. We would never do this for Richard Spencer. We would all take the totality of the person and we would say, okay, these are their overarching beliefs. We know what they are. And when they say things like, well, I don't want to kill all the Jews or whatever. I just want a proper culture in America. We don't say, well, literally by the words they're saying, they just want a cohesive culture. We say, oh, that's what they really mean is they want to kick out all the Jews and all the whatever. Like, so it's like we can go line by line and just look at the words that said. But I feel like
with Trump, we use his actual words. We sometimes apply some other lens to them in context that makes the most sense. And so, for example, when he says march peacefully, we think that that's just him kind of doing a self-serving statement, right? So I totally acknowledge that at times we need to look past the stated words at the broader context, at what's being said, and at the person's character in general, what they stand for.
That's why I would agree with when you bring up Econoboi, right? If he were to say that, I would be willing to say like, oh, he's not meaning like an actual re-education camp, because I know in totality, Econoboi I don't think would like be for that. But if I look at totality of Hasan, I'm much harder in saying no, he wouldn't be for that just by his statement alone.
So for the re-education camps, what I would say is like, well, can you show me other instances in which Hasan has said we should crack down on people who say X, we should not allow this kind of...
Wait, somebody was linking it earlier. Where's the video of Hasan saying like the only thing I disagree with about China is that they didn't try to do like the global socialist revolution? Does anybody have that
kind of expression if it's counter to this? So for like,
his whole statement on what Zionists shouldn't even be like a dog walker.
True.
That's pretty blatant.
Wait. So that's, I think that's a reference to we should not let these people we should not, people should take it upon themselves to boycott these people, to drive them out of polite society.
What?
He said we shouldn't even allow them to be the local dog walker, which implies a whole bunch of things.
What do you think it implies?
Because we would.
That you want to kick every like Zionist person completely and totally out of your society in every way, size, shape, or form? Obviously, we won't even go as far as the Jew thing, which probably, but like it's the fact that like people who are pro-Israel existing shouldn't even be dog walkers in your community. What could that possibly imply? Besides, they should be excised from every community that they're in, maybe put into camps or given special armbands. Sorry, this is
I'm afraid that we're gonna try to check China and they're gonna slap us around. I mean, I don't know. Just my only fear with China is that they're not like ideologically interested in promoting socialism. They're just more so interested and invested in Chinese prosperity than anything else. They have mentioned time and time again that they are not interested in regime change, like recognizing the mistakes of the USSR, but not the good lessons that you could learn from the US.
Regime change isn't changing other people's regimes.
But like these the bad ones. So even the socialist alternative, even the supposedly socialist alternative, is not interested in a multipolar world that is like willing to ideologically prop up socialist parties in other countries in the way that the USSR did. Anti-colonial action.
Just that means invading the countries, killing the leaders there, and installing your own governments. In case you're like, that's what the USSR did. It's what the United States also did with the CIA. Again, it's not good, but we weren't the only ones doing it. Okay, but that is what Hasan is saying here.
And democratic socialism was ultimately fostered, and even if it wasn't directly funded or supported by the USSR, the existence of the USSR as at least at the time, socialist nation created an opportunity for a lot of these European social democracies to continue pushing for amenities that they take for granted to this day, welfare and healthcare and things of that nature.
Yes, welfare and healthcare were invented by and only exist because of socialism.
I think the existence of the USSR created an opportunity for these countries to be like, well, we have to capitulate to the Social Democrats. We have to capitulate to the Social Democrats lest we lose these countries directly to the specter haunting Europe, specter of communism. So I don't think that there is I don't think there's a good alternative. Wait, could you explain that one better? It sounds like you're saying liberalism inevitably leads to fascism. Wow. Is that what I'm saying? That's crazy.
Like those are our allies. The people who say liberals will all become fascists, right? Scratch a liberal and a fascist bleeds. That in a civil war between Nazis and the nice socialists, liberals will always side with fascism. That liberalism always gives way to fascism, right? Like these are our allies? Really? We have to appeal to these people who think that we're all fascists?
Them to be the local dog walker, which implies a whole bunch of things.
What do you think it implies?
Because we would violence. I mean, at the very least, if not like violence, implied violence through like government, like law or whatever.
So that's for example, we shouldn't let these commies like be local dog watchers. These people should be pariahs in our society.
Government, like law or whatever.
So that's example.
Violence, implied violence through like government, like law or whatever.
So that's for example, we shouldn't let these commies like be local dog watchers. These people should be pariahs in our society.
First of all, commie doesn't have the same heavy racial connotation that Zionist does, okay, which it does. But secondly, I've never even said that. Remember, I'm a capitalist and a liberal. I think that all political views, I guess, can exist in the United States. I just don't know if I like them in our fucking media right now.
You think that implies violence?
Or not necessarily the viewpoints, but just the lying.
He's like be local dog watcher. These people should be pariahs in our society. Do you think that implies violence?
It depends on who says it again.
We shouldn't let these commies be dog walkers.
I think for Destiny, I don't think that.
Like, if I had just supported a terrorist attack and was supporting terrorist attacks around the world on communists, then I think it would be a fair reading of my statement there, right? If I were to make similar statements about MAGA, you could argue that based on other statements and jokes or whatever things I've said, maybe you could read some violence of that, possibly.
Implies violence.
Some people are saying he said dog catcher, which is an elected office.
Oh my. Oh, who said it? No, it's fucking Queeman. They're all here. Oh shit, I didn't even see his name in chat. It's fucking Queeman. Dog catcher. No, it's dog catcher, the lowest elected office. Oh, fuck. Oh God. Oh no. But remember, I'm hallucinating all of this and I'm fucking crazy and I'm having a schizo moment and it's not actually true. Jesus. 1 second. We need to eat fresh. Awkward. He was still out there. Holy fuck. Listen to me screaming like a fucking lunatic. Oh, Jesus. God, fuck. Oh my God. I didn't even see his name in there. Jesus. Oh.
Yeah. That's why I was, the other caveat that I was adding was like it involves some sort of government censorship.
Yeah, wait, no. If he says we shouldn't let these people be dog catchers, then what he's saying is we shouldn't vote for these people, right? That's the best interpretation of what that is? Or do you think he literally means...
I just think the framing is frustrating, and this is why I get confused on where you're at on this stuff, is because I think it is appropriate to look at like the Hasan types. I think you should treat them like Nazis. I think you should think of them in the same group as Nazis. Like that's why it's because we're doing this like thing where we're like
who's worse,
where we're trying to analyze and hyper obsess over every single fucking thing to see if they've said the exact fucking thing they said, but they don't operate that way. And again, Hasan has openly said that he doesn't operate that way. Hasan is more blatant about his propaganda than Nick Fuentes is, and Nick Fuentes was pretty open about how he did propaganda.
Hasan or Nazi?
Who's worse, Hasan? They're the same. I think they're the same. We're doing this like thing where we're like,
who's worse, Hasan or Nazi?
Who's worse, Hasan? They're the same. I think they're the same.
Okay, so I'm trying to suss out why you think that, because I disagree. Because it sounds like
here's something that is unambiguous. Okay, like Hasan
DGG tactics
is okay with just attacking civilians, right?
I don't know.
He cheered on.
Oh my God! It's.
He cheered on the Houthis who boarded that civilian cargo ship and was like, yeah, let's go to like Nick right there. And he was super happy with that.
Okay,
right?
so can I respond to that?
Yeah.
So I think Hasan will justify violence against civilians sometimes. Do you agree that Destiny will justify?
Agrees with it?
Oh my God! How could he possibly? What? Okay, we'll see.
Do you agree that Destiny will justify violence against civilians sometimes?
No.
Like terrorist attacks?
No, not in your example earlier when you talked about the shooting. I think you misframed the way I think
Beyond
he presented
that, for example, so he would be in favor of violence against civilians if it's casualties of war as an incident.
No, incidental violence is not the same thing as targeting somebody. What? Like, if it came out that, like, for instance, let's say Israel just, like, saw some civilians and was like, we're just going to fucking kill these guys because they're civilians. They fucking kill them because they're civilians. No, I've never support that. That's obviously not good, ever, right? And you can tell this because anytime I, quote-unquote, defend Israel, generally it's always that incidental damage is part of war, collateral damage. These are all calculations that are made. It sucks, but war sucks. But I'm not going to sit here and say, like, oh, well, if there are times where Israel is caught intentionally targeting people, or they're actually weaponizing food as a collective punishment against Palestinians, it's not good. You can't do that. You cannot target intentionally and explicitly civilian population. You can't do that. That's not good. And I wouldn't support that.
To justified war, correct?
That's completely different, though, right?
I'm just saying there are some circumstances under which he would be okay with violence against civilians, correct?
But that's fundamental.
But that's such a watered down. It's like that's like saying like, oh no. If he does this, I might actually explode on stream. If he manages to bring up the Warsaw Ghetto Uprising, then I'll know it's all. My brain is gone. He's like, do you think the Warsaw Ghetto Uprising was okay?
different than Hasan. That's,
No, I'm just
it's not even
asking
the same question.
You can just grant it and just later on find a way to
No,
distinguish
I'm fighting against it because I think it's important because he's not okay with violence against civilians in that scenario. That it's incidental. Hasan's is targeted.
Yeah. So
yes.
So my question is, so Destiny, he won't say that you should use violence against civilians with your conscious object to hurt the civilians. I don't think that he would say that. Do you think that Hasan would say, yeah, we should do this violence so that it hurts civilians for the purpose of hurting civilians?
Yes.
Well, no, because for Hasan, there are no civilians in Israel. There are baby settlers. So technically the caller is wrong because Hasan believes in baby settlers, okay?
Because that's part of the reason.
Can you give me the
that's
best
part of
example
the
of that?
part of the reason is like he thinks that it's
baby settlers. Do the baby settlers.
It's good to take away like the Iron Dome from Israel because it would allow the Israelis to get hurt more. Then if the Israelis get hurt more, it scares them away back to Brooklyn, like he says, and it'll slowly erode Israel until it's completely gone. So he thinks it is good to hurt civilians.
As an incident to what so I don't agree with him on some of what you're saying there, but I just want to be clear. He thinks that civilian death potentially as an incident to some broader, in order to achieve some aim, right?
Yes.
That
but it's not.
being,
The civilian death is not incidental. It's explicit and targeted.
Okay. So,
right for the goal, and I don't think any of us, including Destiny, would want to choose unless it's like the entire world dies or we kill a baby, some crazy thing like that. Okay, but like Destiny wouldn't agree with that for some goal, some end goal, would he?
Well, just to support Israel right now in their current.
Oh my God! It's so bad thing. There's no shot. Does he think I support? If the caller were to ask him, do you think Destiny would support just explicitly just targeting and killing civilians without any kind of military justification? Would Pico actually say yes to that?
Activities in
I
Gaza.
don't know if I don't think so. I don't think no. Not.
You don't think Destiny supports Israel right now?
Oh my God.
Well, I don't want to necessarily get into it, but I know Destiny doesn't.
And now Pico like mind fucked him into this like that's totally not even related to.
I think it's a genocide. I think you do. I think I've heard you say as much.
I do. But regardless of whether or not he thinks it's a genocide, does he support Israel's?
I think. Well, I don't think. No, not.
You don't think Destiny
wouldn't agree with that for some.
Oh my God, is Doobie part of this too? Hasan supported Houthis imposing a blockade on ships suspected of transporting goods to a genocide. First of all, they had no clue where that ship was going. Number one. Number two, they don't give a fuck where it's going. Number three, it's a blockade, but it's a hijacking of a civilian ship and then the taking of hostages. What the fuck?
Some end goal, would he?
Well, does he support Israel right now in their current activities in
Gaza?
I don't.
Destiny talked about rounding up conservatives. He constantly stops himself when going on his calls for violence saying, let me not get banned. What am I talking about? Like Donald Trump and the people that are leading this unhinged, insane shit.
I don't think so. I don't think, no. Not
also, I would argue that it is meaningfully different to talk about a domestic situation than it is to talk about an international situation, right? Like if I was having these same like talks and I was talking about like the political leadership in another country, I think that would be a significantly different thing. I'm a citizen of this country. We're not talking about necessarily terrorism or war or anything else. We're talking explicitly domestic policy. I think that is meaningfully different, but it's also not the same. Like I don't think. And I've clarified this like a million times with that Corey dude or whatever. Like, I don't think anybody should be going out and murdering people because of their political viewpoint differences. I don't think it's cool. Now, am I going to feel bad about how? Probably not, right? This is what I've said. I've said this a million times. I've clarified this a million times, and I'll continue to say it a million times. Hasan explicitly supports the hijacking of civilian ships. There's no comparison.
You don't think Destiny supports Israel right now?
Well, I don't want to necessarily get into it, but I know Destiny doesn't think it's a genocide. I think you do. I think I've heard you say as much.
I do. But regardless of whether or not he thinks it's a genocide, does he support Israel's current activities in Gaza?
Partially. I know okay, I'll just say this. I know he hates Netanyahu. I know he thinks what's currently going on with the AIDS situation is abhorrent. And I know he doesn't like what's going on in the West Bank. So I would say...
But he nonetheless supports Israel, correct?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. So presumably, notwithstanding the fact that Israel does abhorrent action sometimes, notwithstanding, outright war crimes, as the Houthis do, 100%.
Like, excuse me, hold on. This would be the equivalent to what Pisco is saying. This can't be good faith. It can't be. Let me be clear here. Hold on. Hold on, guys. Okay, I don't know if you've seen this, okay? But this is fucking based and awesome, okay? So these guys they deliver food to Hamas, okay? All they do is they just take food and they think they can sneak it around and deliver it to Hamas. But you should have seen Israel, okay? It wasn't just one truck. It wasn't two. It was like 3 different trucks where, boom! You want to talk about a J-Down? They got all of these motherfuckers. They killed all of them, and it was awesome and big. It was so fucking cool. Look at how they killed all these fucking guys, okay? It was so fucking cool. Actually, you know what? I'm sorry. Actually, that wouldn't even be as radical as what Hasan said, because here I would just be pretending that Israel only killed Hamas. So even that wouldn't be as bad as what Hasan said, because Hasan said that it was a civilian tanker, but it was, I guess, taking goods to Israel. Like, I don't understand. It can't be. Like, this is an unreal position to inhabit. Like, there's never been a time where I'm watching, like, Israel where they kill civilians. Like, if you're going to say that I'm running defense for Israel, then the defense that I'm running is that it was an accident, it was poorly planned, or they fucked up really bad and they shouldn't have done it, right? But I'm not sitting here saying, like, yeah, they did kill a bunch of civilians. And you know what? Maybe they deserved it. Maybe they need to go kill it. Maybe they need to go and kill other people, you know, finding food, finding it. It's like, this is an unbelievable comparison.
Israel does abhorrent action sometimes, notwithstanding, you know, outright war crimes, as the Houthis do, 100%. He supports them, not with, like, so help, without getting into the actual merits discussion of, like...
Okay, the difference...
I don't support Israel because they've killed a lot of Palestinians. Hasan supports the Houthis, like, because and when they do terrorism.
The Israel-Palestine discussion is just difficult because I don't know where you stand on it or like what your perception of it is, because I think I agree with Destiny in that the overall, like, and definitely under the restraints of the Biden administration, it's definitely changed now under Trump. Israel, I don't think, has this top-down order of, like, genocide, whereas, like, the Houthis would gladly come in and by policy kill every Israeli in Israel.
Put aside the genocidal stuff, right? Because, like, okay.
Well, we can just say the civilian thing, right? Like, yeah. I don't like if Destiny were to see an action from Israel where, like, they line up like 12 Palestinians, okay, and they just shoot them like execution style, he would go, no, that's abhorrent.
Yes, 100%. Yeah, like I just joked around with the bombing for the trucks or whatever. Yeah, this is fucking horrible, and it's like a cause for concern. Like, even if it was a mistake, it must have been. I can't imagine their intention of trying to murder fucking foreign aid workers. But, like, even as a mistake, this is fucking horrible. They cleared the path ahead of time. These guys were moving on a pre-approved Israeli path. And these were expensive weapons. It's not like Israel just randomly shot these trucks. This was like a whole ass attack that had intelligence, surveillance, and recon, and everything associated with it. This is a massive fuck up. You're targeting multiple missiles on trucks to kill people that I believe were ultimately like civilians, were aid workers, right? It's not good. I'm not going to say here defend that. That's insane. That's unhinged.
Not do that. But, like, if Hasan saw that from the Houthis with,
oh my God,
he would go, no, that's abhorrent. Israel should not do that. But, like,
quick reminder that Destiny's position before he did any research was that the Palestinians should be genocided or ethnically cleansed. It doesn't change that much. My position was before doing any research at all, which ironically, well, I said it's not now. But my position before doing any research at all, it seems like these two people are probably going to fight forever. And if they're going to fight forever, I don't know. I guess I'd probably choose the Israelis to be the winners there. That was my position. And then afterwards, I literally said, I mean, it sucks, and obviously it sucks at the war and they're killing each other and all that. But I like it sucks. Like, how does any sane person listen to this clip and be like, wow, Destiny wants all the Palestinians to die, I guess?
If Hasan saw that from the Houthis with lining up 12 Israelis and execution style, he would be okay with that.
You think Hasan would be okay with an execution style of what, sorry?
Of, like, Israelis, if the Houthis got them or if Hamas got them.
You think he'd be in favor of them summarily executing all Israelis, including babies?
Yes, absolutely.
Why did he add that in there? Why did he add that at the end? I feel like I'm watching... I feel like I'm watching the, oh God, fuck, what's the name of the Asian dude? Fuck, what was it? Oh, Bobby Lee. Like...
I got molested by a guy with that.
And you're gonna laugh. Don't laugh. Seriously.
Don't laugh. The thing is that I'm telling you something that's like I'm vulnerable about it, and I'm expressing a truth to you.
Hey, dude, you gotta get serious.
And if you cover your mouth, I just feel like you're laughing.
Nope, let's do it.
All right. So when I was 9, I was brutally molested by a guy.
You can't say brutally.
Why?
Because that's a curveball.
Why is that?
Because don't say brutally. And look at Chin now. Don't.
It's not a curveball.
Don't say brutally.
You did add some
All right, don't add.
adjectives there.
So when I was 9 years old, every day for a summer.
You can't throw shit in there.
Why?
Because you fucking. I can't.
Why can't I?
Why did Pisco add? And a baby?
Summer.
If Houthi's got them or if Hamas got them.
You think you'd be in favor of them summarily executing all Israelis, including babies?
Why would he? Why does he add? Why does the babies come in here? Why?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. What's the evidence of that?
Wait. I mean, he says the more terror you cause the Israelis, the more they'll flee back to Brooklyn, so we can destroy the state of Israel. And on top of that, if you take his word, which I think he believes,
isn't that the Israeli argument? Like, we need to do this in order to get a Palestinian state, and so the more we do this kind of stuff, it's to protect our aspirations to be a state.
What?
Terror you cause the Israelis.
Also, yeah, I like that he brings up that as an example. It's the funny thing is that Pisco tries to think of the most unhinged thing possible. But Hasan has actually said there are baby settlers.
The more they'll flee back to Brooklyn, so we can destroy the state of Israel. And on top of that, if you take his word, which I think he believes,
isn't that the Israeli argument? Like, we need to do this in order to get a Palestinian state, and so the more we do this kind of stuff, it's to protect our aspirations to be a state. You might agree or disagree, but isn't that like the stated logic of the Palestinians, that we need to do, or Israelis, like, we need to do this to protect our state, and the Palestinians, we need to do this to make our state happen? And they both have an incident of...
I don't think the Israeli policy would be like, we need to cause terror and needless like civilian death. Maybe that would be like the Likud's or like Netanyahu's state policy.
The people who are in charge right now.
Yeah, but they are within the restraints of, well, the U.S. the former.
Where does Haaretz come from? Where does B'Tselem come from? These are Israeli human rights organizations or media outlets that cover almost exclusively favorably Palestinian issues. Like, how are you going to try to broad brush paint the entire Israeli society based on the current government?
Former U.S. administration and within the restraints of their
elective tool. Thank you for the 10 gifted memberships. Trump won the popular vote, by the way.
People, which there has been pushback from their people.
When?
I mean, isn't there protests against Netanyahu constantly for not only for his corruption, but for, you know, the hostages and for the deaths caused in Gaza? Like, hasn't there been mass protests against him?
I don't think in general that the people are rising up against Netanyahu because he's too cavalier about civilian death in Gaza.
Okay, I don't want to really debate
Wait, does he think broadly everybody in Israel supports all the civilian death? Was that the implication there?
I don't think in general that the people are rising up against Netanyahu because he's too cavalier about civilian death in Gaza.
Okay, I don't want to really debate the Israel thing. It's just we're getting off topic.
But Hasan has a particular view of foreign relations. I'm not here to defend all Hasan shit. I'm just basically saying.
I'm sorry. I'm not trying to get you to defend all Hasan shit. I think it's.
I'm sorry. What did he say? Hasan has a particular view on foreign relations. What? What? So then the one statement that I made yesterday or the day before, whenever I streamed last, was correct, and that these people just don't think Hasan is that bad. So my statement there was absolutely correct, and now I feel, to quote somebody, fully vindicated in that position. They just don't think that Hasan's position is that crazy. Hasan cheering on terrorism is basically the same thing as me saying, that firefighter got shot at the rally, I don't give a fuck about it. It's basically the exact same thing. Okay.
I'll ask you this, and then maybe I can add evidence or whatever. Do you think Hasan is okay with destroying the current order of the United States, and he's perfectly fine with violence to do that?
Is Hasan okay with violent revolution in America?
Yeah.
I don't know.
It's because I just don't think he knows very much about Marxist-Leninism, and Aaron is also very good at being mask on. He just must not know, I guess.
Don't know. I think there's a clip on the deprogram.
What? I'm so curious. And it's funny because he's gonna be like, well, has Hasan actually said that? Has Hasan actually said that he's okay with violence?
Taking my.
It's hurt poor people that they can afford housing in Berkeley. I don't know how that works.
My understanding is that the property owners who have properties there choose just not to rent it at all.
Yeah, kill them. Kill those motherfuckers in a video game. Sorry. Holy shit. Murder those motherfuckers in the street. Let the streets soak in their fucking red capitalist bloods, dude. Oh my god, in a video game, of course. Holy shit. Holy fucking shit, dude. Sorry.
Like, I mean, I don't know, like, what else I'm
Grand podcast where he talks about this, and he talks about, have you seen this before?
No.
Where he's talking with, it's pretty creepy.
Wait, he hasn't even seen the deprogram segment? So that means he didn't watch Ethan Klein's Content Nuke. It means he hasn't seen any of the surrounding conversation about how Hasan tries to weaponize other communities and Democrats and liberals to further his own socialist agenda. How could he not be aware of literally anything around this? What?
I can link it to you. I have the link. I don't know where.
Do you know kind of what he says?
In general. He goes on to say, like, you know, I'm here for the purposes of, you know, funneling people into the radicalization pipeline in order to reach, you know, the communist or the revolution.
Destiny wants to kill half the country. Pisco, why aren't you saying Hasan is the next Hitler? Are you fucking him or something?
Shouldn't state or whatever.
So yeah, that's not violent revolution. Revolutions can be violent and non-violent.
The communist or the revolution state funneling people into the radicalization pipeline in order to reach, you know, the communist or the revolution state or whatever. So
yeah, that's not violent revolution. Revolutions can be violent and non-violent.
I can't. There's just no way. This can't be proffered in good faith. That's impossible. But there's just no way.
Yeah, but we're doing this uber.
Okay, if it's all mask on and we're just assuming, I'm just asking, are there like explicit statements of him supporting violent revolution in America?
Is there an explicit statement of Donald Trump supporting a violent revolution on January 6th? Like,
I don't have all the moments. I just know through seeing enough of this. I know that's like a bad answer.
Right, did Hasan talk about? Wait, someone's saying this. Hasan has been talking about letting landlords soak in pig blood or something. I don't know if that. Did Hasan talk about? Wait, someone's saying this. Hasan has been talking about letting landlords soak in pig.
When did Palestinians just invade and rot all political discourse? I thought Doobie used to be like people accused him of being like fucking alt-right or whatever. Doobie says, okay, if there's a genocide happening, isn't it a good thing to stop the transport of missiles/ammo/gear to support the genocide? What the fuck?
Pig blood or something? I don't know if that's maybe.
Yeah, I know he said like let the capitalist blood flow the streets. But I don't bring these up because people can play them off. Yeah, that's why I'm saying I don't bring them up because people can play them off as like jokey. But I don't like. Okay. Like, it's just like, I don't know how much you've seen of his coverage of like Israel-Palestine, but he's like unhinged talking about like how the violence is completely okay. And if he's okay with it there because he thinks Israel is a genocidal state, he thinks America is also a genocidal state because we support Israel.
Oh my God. Doobie tries to say he was LARPing now? Quick reminder that while I was LARPing as an open far-right fascist on panels on debate streams, Destiny was doing regular AMAs on my massive Discord server while I gobbled up members of his audience. Like he planned it because I was nice enough to do 4-hour fucking AMAs on his server? Bro, like I said, okay, listen, when people call me schizo, okay, this is why I will at least spend a little bit of time talking about all the connections, okay? Oh my God! And Vivian is there! What? Vivian is back! Donated $10, donated $10, donated $10, donated $10. Most of the destruction happened under Biden. There was starvation under Biden and LeMayo. This guy's coping hard. What should be done to Americans who distribute pamphlets they receive from an organization the U.S. Trump has designated a terrorist group? Prison for rehabilitation? Zionism equals ethno-nationalism, by the way. Quick reminder that while I was LARPing, we said this, was Destiny pandering to the far right when he was doing streams with Sneeko, Myron Gaines, Nick Fuentes, and Lawrence Southern? They were often just hanging out or wandering around in public together. Almost every single fucking stream that I was doing with almost all of these people was like a fucking active debate. Even regardless of what you ever wanted to say about the unverified and unvetted rumors. With me and Lauren, even my streams with her were usually all fucking debates. There was never a point ever where people saw me on streams and they were like, oh my God, is Destiny a Nazi now? Did Destiny believe in Nazism? Did Destiny become a Nazi? That's just never, ever, ever been the case. I don't know why people try to do this thing It's not real. It can't be real. This can't be a real comparison, right? Where like, oh, you're mad that that Hasan brought on the Houthi kid, but weren't you with Nick Fuentes? I was debating him the entire stream. Hasan brought on the Houthi kid because he was supporting everything he was doing. He was supporting the whole time. Wasn't Aaron regularly on Disney stream for hours, hanging out online and in person, and also being pushed on platforms like Fresh and Fit through her association with him? I didn't push Aaron anywhere. That was all Progressive Victory and Pixie and whatever the fuck they were doing. That was Progressive Victory is not my organization. I know that like Kiwi Farms and all of these like weird, deranged, unhinged losers like to pretend somehow that it was my organization. It wasn't. I didn't direct them or give directions to them or anything at all. And they also say that I took a ton of money from them, even though they have to publicly file all the people they paid. I got paid $0 from Progressive Victory. I didn't have anything to do with any of their scheduled planning or anything, except I guess maybe whenever we did our canvassing events. Also, when Aaron was on, I was usually arguing with Aaron about shit as well. The initial response was embarrassing for him because it exposed his irrational Hasan derangement syndrome. He found it difficult to defend, so he pretended. You changed the context to avoid the L. Simple.
Why would he be okay with the total destruction of America if they're just as genocidal as Israel?
He may be. I just don't know. I'm agnostic on that. I don't know.
Because do you acknowledge that he thinks Israel should be destroyed?
If what you mean by destroyed is ended as its current as a Jewish state, I think the answer is yes.
Oh my God.
You don't.
I don't know that he supports the death of every single Israeli living in Israel.
Okay. I don't think you're being.
You can't win. No, this kid is right. I don't know who's arguing with him. Wait, was this Zip? Whoever's arguing with this is right. He feels frustrated, and he should feel frustrated because he goes like hardcore fucking not gaslighting, but like the way that he's like leading around this debate. Like, do you show me a statement where Hasan is saying, "I want every single Jewish person who's innocent and hasn't committed a single crime to be killed summarily for absolutely no reason," like
aside of Israelis.
I don't know. I think the furthest I'm willing to go would be like an ethnic cleansing of them.
Okay. Do you think Israel supports an ethnic cleansing of Palestinians?
I think the current administration does, absolutely.
Okay. So on that, would you agree they're on all fours?
Like, Israel does not support ethnically cleansing all the Palestinians. Netanyahu absolutely does, and all of the very far right Zionists in Israel absolutely do. If I had to guess like a percentage of their population, depending upon how you pull and how you ask, probably anywhere from like 10 to 40%, 10 to 45%, maybe that might be a little bit high, would probably support like doing it in practice, but not all of Israel, not every single citizen. Again, what do these organizations like Bet Salem and Haaretz, where do they come from, right? These guys, like Bet Salem's position is that Bet Salem is an Israeli-founded organization of Jews that monitor human rights abuses against Palestinians. They say that the Palestinians living in Israel are under an apartheid state. They say that Israel is committing a genocide. Like these are Jews living in Israel, Israeli citizens.
Sorry, what do you mean? What?
So as someone who supports Israel, who supports ethnic cleansing, as someone who supports Hamas or Palestine that supports ethnic cleansing, like how should we view those?
It's hard to do this because when we look at like someone who's like supporting like Hamas or whatever, and they want ethnic cleansing and they want genocide, versus like somebody who's Israeli and supports Israel, and obviously I think their government supports like ethnic cleansing, and some of their people are genocidal. It's different because when we look at the Israeli government, it's constrained. I mean, it's like you say, like Trump is constrained.
They seem pretty unconstrained, bro. They're attacking Iran. They're attacking.
No,
Syria,
hold up, wait. Do you
saying they're unconstrained? He has no concept of Israeli history or governance. Right? He doesn't know anything about the country. He might get. I think his girlfriend is like a pretty big anti-Israeli person, so maybe he gets all of his opinions from her. But even Joanna's not that stupid about Israel. That to pretend that Israel has no constraints around how they conduct their foreign policy is ridiculous. Like, they have a big carte blanche to do a lot right now, especially with Trump in office, for sure. But to say they have no restraints is just to be totally ignorant of the country and history. If they had no constraints, all the Palestinians would be living in the Sinai right now. That would be the...
Trump is constrained.
They seem pretty unconstrained, bro. They're attacking Iran. They're attacking
Syria.
Hold up,
wait. Do you agree that there's a difference in the way Israel has conducted the war prior to Trump versus post-Trump?
I think that there's
a significant
difference. I agree. But
good job.
So
that means they have constraints.
If we acknowledge that Israel has constraints, okay, which include America and
wait, can I just pause? I think it's significant. I don't think it's massive.
Really? There was no like starvation before Trump. Well, there was no ethnic cleansing before Trump.
I think that was their aim all along. I think it's intensified and ratcheted up for sure. I think it's significant. I just don't think that like it's probably right now like more people have died under Biden if we're just looking at deaths. I do think it's significant.
I don't think that's consequential.
I think it's a consequential difference. I just don't think it's like 3 orders of magnitude. I think it's like maybe...
Sorry, I keep getting into the thing because it's so related to like the violent talk that Hasan employs. Like it's hard because I'm having to like work in this world right now where like Hasan is like, I have to take him at his good word, but I feel like we understand if we take his total things, like we can see. I don't even think you have to be like uncharitable to get to where he's saying certain things.
To address everyone in the chat, I think it's a significant difference. When I say it's not massive, I just mean like I think that Israel had the intent of ethnic cleansing the whole time, and that there was massive civilian death the whole time. And yeah, in terms of like the actual destruction, most of it happened under Biden. So I'm not saying that it's not a significant difference.
Most of it happened under Biden because Biden was the one who was president when the war started. 9/11 happened under Bush. That doesn't mean that Bush was responsible for 9/11. Also, people are just reading off quotes from people like Doobie. Most of the destruction happened under Biden. There was starvation under Biden. LeMayo, this guy's coping hard.
When I say it's not massive, I just mean I think the intent has been consistent. And a lot of the destruction happened under Biden, and so that's why I say it's not massive. Maybe it's an order of magnitude difference, but it's not many orders of magnitude different. That's all I mean.
Okay, I'm gonna try and like recenter because we just gone
let's recenter.
Horrible tangent.
Can we get to like prescriptions at some point?
Yeah. Okay, yeah, I'll get to prescriptions. Okay, have you ever read Rawls, like John Rawls?
I'm sure at some point, but I'm sure I can remember.
Like, do you know about his like ideas, like the political principle and like common consensus? Like, do you know?
You're gonna have to refresh me on them. I can't.
Okay.
Yeah, no,
so,
not right now.
Like Rawls, like,
I did like part of a politics degree. I have an econ degree. I did a lot of politics classes. I'm sure I read John Rawls. I just do not remember.
Yeah, I'm in my degree currently, so I've read this recently. So that's why it's on my brain, and I just think it's important. It's an important reference for me. I'm not pointing against you or anything. I'll just quickly just say these things, okay? So like Rawls talks about like why or how a liberal democracy exists and why it's like a good thing, and like how it can exist. So he talks about like these two things. There's like a common consensus among the people. So like we all have to have like a common consensus on facts, and then if we have a common consensus, we can like move forward and like create legislation, and like this is a good thing for creating like a working like liberal democracy. This is why I think MAGA obviously needs to be rejected because they're delusional, right? They can't function as a common consensus. They're insane. And I think commies, tankies probably work within this framework as well, specifically on like Israel-Palestine, but we won't go into that. Okay. And then the other thing is Rawls talks about like the political principle, and basically he says like the political principle is this principle that like broadly everybody in society agrees on, and inherently like not everybody agrees with every aspect of it, but there's enough there that as a pluralistic society of like ideologies, we can coalesce around this political principle, and then we can build our society off of that. And
Sorry, I'm trying to find this argument that Doobie's having.
Sure, I read John Rawls. I just do not remember.
Yeah, I'm in my degree currently, so I've read this recently, so that's why it's on my brain, and I just think it's important. It's an important reference for me. I'm not pointing against you or anything. I'll just quickly just say these things, okay? So like Rawls talks about like why or how a liberal democracy exists and why it's like a good thing, and like how it can exist. So he talks about like these two things. There's a common consensus among the people.
Oh, just read the live chat. Oh shit, I forgot.
So like we all have to have like a common consensus on facts. And then if we have a common consensus, we can like move forward and like create legislation. And, like,
I don't know how this fucking live chat works. I'm retarded. I'm sorry.
This is why I think MAGA obviously needs to be rejected because they're delusional, right? They can't function as a common consensus. They're insane. And I think commies, tankies probably work within this framework as well, specifically on like Israel-Palestine, but we won't go into that. Okay. And then the other thing is Rawls talks about like the political principle, and basically
if there is a genocide and civilian ships are being used to fuel the genocide, is it wrong to stop the civilian ships? And then he finally gets this guy to, Doobie gets this guy to agree, yes, that would be good. That wasn't the Houthi MO.
he says like the political
and then
principle.
Doobie says, okay, that's what the Houthis were doing. Like, the Houthis don't even give a fuck. Yemen people, they do not care about the fucking Palestinian issue. The Yemenis people have had their own issues that they've been fighting over for a long fucking time, okay? And a lot of other Arab countries have been interested in trying to assert influence over this conflict in Yemen that's been going on for a long time. Remember, one of the reasons why Egypt probably got so fucked in the 6 Day War was because Nasser had exhausted like tens of thousands of troops prior trying to do war in Yemen. It wasn't against the Houthis at this time. It was different fighting groups, but I'm pretty sure. But the idea that like the Houthis have some strong, huge connection to what's going on in Palestine is just not true. I guess except for like white dipshits like Doobie, or I don't know what his skin color is. He acts white. Who think that like every Arab and every Muslim are like connected spiritually through some kind of like mental, forged psychic link to always be invested in each other's conflicts at all points in time.
Is this principle that like broadly everybody in society agrees on. And inherently, like, not everybody agrees with every aspect of it, but there's enough there that as a pluralistic society of like ideologies, we can coalesce around this political principle, and then we can build our society off of that. And for America,
Doobie has over 4,000 messages in Peace Goes Discord. Holy shit. Okay. Damn. Jesus.
The political principle is the Constitution, okay? Okay. And so the reason why, obviously, you and if you're not part of this, he calls you like an unreasonable ideology because you're not adhering to the political principle. Obviously, this is another reason why you'd want to reject MAGA, right? Because they don't adhere to this political principle. They're completely unconstitutional. All this, okay? I'd say this falls. Also, this and this is the prescription I'm going to give. Yep. Right. This is why we want to exclude people like Hasan, okay, and tankies and. You
think Hasan is a tanky, right?
I do think Hasan is a tank. I think he's played it.
And that by means like he supports Stalin, he supports CCP, that kind of stuff.
Yes, I know for a fact he like, you know anything about the Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact?
Yes.
Like, yeah, he blatantly says it's like propaganda, that's false. You know, it's equivalent to saying like, I can't remember what he says, but he basically sidesteps that and says it's irrelevant, and that the communists weren't working with the Nazis.
Well, that doesn't necessarily make him a tanky. I understand that I agree with you that I'm sus at anyone who's like,
oh my God. Okay, I have my debate with them is tomorrow at 6 o'clock. It should be fun. I'm doing stuff tonight. Part-time streamer. Rip. I love you guys. It's been fun. I'll call myself. Stay safe. Be careful. Rip in a cappuccino. Yeah, stay mad. Can I email you memes? Yeah, if you have timestamps or shit or whatever that I can use, I'll probably write up an outline for this debate tomorrow. So be careful. Don't die.